at 6:30. And as usual, we are being broadcast live, I think, and definitely video recorded. So please know that. As usual, we will start with open session. Is anybody here for open session? No? Okay, we will move on then. You guys aren't here for open session, are you? You're here for the budget?
Yep.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so we'll get right to it.
So, good evening, everyone. The structure for this evening, we have a public budget presentation, so I'm just gonna give changes that have occurred, not many since the last version you got. The most updated version is in your packets, the printed out version. Also have, it's not showing up yet, but the breakdown of the warrants, how much that would cost, and the impact on free cash, stabilization, municipal stabilization to facilitate discussions. And then tonight, everyone who has a warrant presented was asked or invited to come and speak about it for our initial warrant review. So the warrant you have in front of you we'll get one more view by me tomorrow morning, and then we'll send it to council for advice and last tweaks.
Okay.
That's where we're at. So this is just to show you what we're gonna use tonight. So if we look up, this is the budget total. This is the current surplus amount in the budget after some adjustments, which I'll explain. Everything down here is what is on the warrant that's before you tonight for review.
I'm good.
In addition to the projected costs. This operating line item, this comes straight out of the budget and is broken down for you here in terms of costs as well. And then down here, just have some informational numbers for if you were to put or vote to put money into stabilization, what that would look like. So if we can update this as I'm moving along. If you want to play with the numbers or see what different things would do, that's what this is for. If you don't want to use it, that's fine as well. By taking some of these things out, the numbers for stabilization and municipal stabilization will increase. So by best practice, financial best practice, your stabilization should be somewhere between 3 and 5%. I'm recommending as close to 4 as possible. Municipal stabilizations, if that's something we continue to carry, normally be around 1.5% of the operating budget. And again, that surplus is from some changes that were made to the budget, specifically the increase in new growth that came directly from the assessors and the realization of approximately $30,000 in savings from the insurance, the general insurance, which we met with Berry Insurance last week. We feel very comfortable with that insurance number, and that's a good thing. So since Friday's version of the budget, which was mailed to or emailed to the Selectmen and the FinCom, the changes you'll see, $1,000 was added to town accountant's salary. So if you look, this used to be broken out, $35,000 for the outsourcing and $6,000 for a clerk. They're one and the same, so I added them in together. So that was 35 and 6. That turns into 41. And 42 represents the $1,000 increase that we negotiated with Eric Kinship for next year.
That was based on site visit stuff, right?
Yes. So that does not include additional time for accounting, if that's something that the board, the finance committee would be willing to entertain, which I've recommended. Legal services, I put that at 50,000 in the last version. I'm dropping it back down to 40. I talked to council. We are over budget with council this year. I feel like that was sort of an anomaly based off of some of the legal situations that we had to discuss in depth, and also having an interim town administrator and bringing on a new town administrator.
No question.
I think that that given some of the controls I want to put in with town council, not limiting anyone's access but funneling it through me to make sure we're trying to take advantage of free state council and resources we can use, that we're going to try and keep that number under that. I'm hoping to come in way under that. So I put that back into the budget. And then there's a significant change here that I want to call out with the fire department budget. So originally, as requested by the department, there was an inclusion of a firefighter and paramedic. So what that would have done for the town, including that in, it would be another $18,571 in addition to the number that you see at the top, the 214,529. So they requested 241,1. Reason that was requested, that would add 24 hours a week of coverage if we were to add another paramedic firefighter. So right now, it's 11 hours a day for 7 days a week of coverage, full-time coverage from 7 to 6. This would change it for 6 days a week from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. if we were able to add another firefighter paramedic. Some benefits of that: you have more full-time coverage, more response, especially during the, and the chief's here to explain some of this if you want some more, from 7 to 10 when the highest call volume comes in. And also there would likely be some revenue gains, not that you want to look at health as revenue, but using the ambulance more rather than farming it out to other towns, since we don't have full-time coverage, and may not be able to respond to everything with a call wage. So it would cost more. It would be another $18,571 on top of what's in this budget right now as it's constructed to add that firefighter paramedic. But I wanted to call that out. I had to make adjustments to the budget because once we took that firefighter paramedic out, we needed to spend more on overtime and other costs that the chief had shifted in to try and lessen that burden.
What was our fiscal year? I know we had it combined with the ambulance, the enterprise fund, but do you know, up there we see the 100,331 for fiscal year 2018 approved. At what was last year's number to compare to 214 is basically? Do you know that offhand?
So combining those two, I don't know, but the total firefighter budget has only gone up by, what is it, chief? It's less than 3%.
Yes.
For the total without the additional firefighter paramedic. I can get you about
I believe with the additional firefighter, it actually works out that it's like 4.9% more than last year's budget.
Okay.
So I've taken that out so that we can consider it
Right.
on its own merits in addition to the surplus and what we want for service levels. So that's a significant increase in services to the town. Obviously there's some costs with that, and there would be costs projected out for 2 or 3 years adding that employee. This would only cover in the budget September to June or end of June. So the year after that, we'd have to add in another 9,000 or so. Plus you have employee benefits and there's other considerations. Those are the only changes that I made. I highlighted them here in green. Everything else is the same. What this does to the total budget gives us a surplus of 71,000 to decide what we want to do with tonight and moving forward. Brings the total budget to $9,232,711. With capital included, that's a 5.97% increase. If you take capital out, the operating budget increased by 3.32%.
And how much of the school increase affected that?
The exact numbers. So from 18, they had a 4.323 or $4.3 million budget. They're now at 4.5. 5.75% increase in assessment to us for a 6-figure hit.
And essentially level from Monty Tech, or even
A little bit less.
a little
for
bit less.
Monster.
That's right. Okay. So that's school-wise, round numbers, $175,000 increase, just total dollars. And then what was our total town increase at the bottom? The total delta between last year was 8,712 to 9,232. So that's
270,000-ish. Sorry, 280.
no 8,7 to 9,2.
Correct. I'm sorry.
500.
A little under 500.
Right. So can we just go over again? So that's a pretty big number. Can we just go over again sort of some of the, and seeing as the school's only 175 of that, can we just go into a few of the major sort of increases from last year? I'm not trying to go over the whole budget again.
Okay.
I'm just because it's a pretty significant increase to some.
So there were, and I have all of it broken out for you.
Yep.
Increases in employee hours and wages that we discussed in detail last time. The rest of the major increases with the budget are capital for sure. Police saw, or public safety saw, a small increase. DPW. Too fast.
So we essentially had a 2% COLA across the board,
2% COLA, yeah.
exclusive of whatever other union agreements we had made that are within union contracts?
The 2% COLA excludes myself, the chief, and all of the union contracts.
What did we do last year? Do you remember? As far as,
It was two.
it was two?
From what I've seen, it was.
Oh,
looked
yeah, I
like
thought
it
you meant
was
how
two.
did we account for
No,
it?
no,
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 it was, no, it was 2%, okay.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Yep. So the way we saw tonight going is, this is open for public discussion,
Sure.
discussion for you, and then I'd like to bring up the department heads or people that have interest in the warrant articles that obviously affect the free cash and other expenditures to come up to speak and then review the warrant, if that's what the board's pleasure is.
Yep, sounds good. So, you wanna start off with, to see if anyone has any sort of general questions after a quick overview there? So if anyone, please raise your hand and be called upon if you're interested in asking some questions about what we just went over there in summarized form. I know it's a lot of info and can't see a lot of it and all that, but, I see. But go ahead, Tom.
So, on the local receipts, which is on the town website, on the local receipts, you have projected $333,000 coming into the town.
Which line item, Tom?
Payment in lieu of taxes.
Okay.
I got from the DCR today, their payment in lieu of taxes is $321,585. And that's a difference of around $11,000. But we have these solar farms that are bringing in about $200,000. So where's the rest of the local, where's that money going, or where's, it seems like that local receipt should be somewhere around 500,000.
Isn't this it, doesn't it go into actual,
So
new growth?
from the assessor, from our assessor, the solar brings in a one-time increase in the budget in terms of payment in lieu of taxes, and then it reverts to the revenue that is generated for any other parcel or business in town. So once you realize that initial gain, the gains after are just like any other gain would be. So that initial money goes away.
So where would that be included in the 6 million?
Yes.
In the property tax line?
It would be included in property tax, yes.
Yeah.
This was a change, the Attorney General, or I don't remember exactly what, but they changed the policy on how you, deal with it last year, or the year before, I can't remember exactly how, but I know
2 years ago.
2 years ago, a couple times we've had to deal with it that way.
Okay, that was my question.
Okay, anyone else?
To fully answer your question, Tom, the numbers that I use are directly from the Department of Revenue. I think it's prudent to be conservative with revenue estimates, so what they allow by best practice is the numbers I use, and I brought them right across the board. So I didn't want to play with those numbers at all, increasing or constrict them so much that expenditures and services dropped in the town. So we're comfortable that the revenue is low. To include new growth, we believe that we'll realize more.
Okay, so no further questions I see from the public here, so I guess on you tell us who you wanna have come up to us first.
I'm gonna let my department heads fight it out.
Travis, you're up.
You were there first, so.
We'll go by alphabetical order. So again, just to orient, there's a lot of people in the room, new people in the room. This is our current situation and the document we can use to adjust numbers. It includes the total budget, the surplus that's in the budget right now, our free cash total, our savings totals, and everything that is being talked about or presented here in terms of warrant articles.
And just so we're clear, one more time, in the top number that's up there, the 9.232 million, which is the budget we just went over here, what's included in that is the 413,100 capital.
Yes.
Right now. So what we're talking about, as you see on that screen, that's what's included. Any of the things we talk about here about adding or subtracting will affect that 413,100, thus affecting the 9.232 at the top.
And I think it's important too. The breakout, the operational budget breakout includes capital items that were included in the budget, and also that existing number is free cash injected into the operating budget in order to to take down debt payments or one-time costs for debt. So that, if you were to adjust the number, that existing number, you could drop that down. That would bring less free cash into the budget in terms of revenue, drop the budget and add more to, say, stabilization or for a capital article.
Okay. All right, so Travis, applicable to you being here tonight is the dump truck.
Yes.
Wanna-
Do you have this sheet? Yes.
So we included in your, Travis wrote up a sheet that is included in your packet that discusses some of the points he has here and will be available online.
So Travis, before you start, I just really want to commend the DPW this winter. I think it's our roads haven't looked so good in
Ever.
many years, ever. That's
Appreciate
right.
it.
So you guys did a good job. I think a lot of people here appreciate that too. They look fantastic, and whatever you guys did, we appreciate it. I think the whole town appreciates it. And keep up the good job.
I think that deserves
Thank you. The truck we replaced last year was the 97 Ford. So this is the sister truck of that, and it's the wing truck. So it's really virtually two trucks in one. So far this year, in the past 4 years, we've spent $38,131 on that truck alone. So if you wanted to break it down, it's about $10,000 a year.
Has that been, and I'm not asking you to be crazy detailed here, but is 28 of that something? And then it just so happened, was that some major thing that
No, it's all, I mean, we had to replace the piston pump in it. We have a lot of hydraulic lines, and a lot of the hydraulic lines are steel, so we have had to replace them. It's a frontline truck that deals with a lot of salt, and honestly, in the 5 years I've been here, we've tried to maintain it and get it up to snuff. What has happened before then, it was hurt its life, quite honest with you. It has a lot, it's a 20-year-old vehicle that deals with salt and sand at the time. Now it deals with salt through the years, and it's got heavy rust and rot repairs needed. The body's starting to have holes come through the sides and all. This year, it's a 20-year-old vehicle. It's a 1998 Ford L8000. It's only got a 300-horse motor in it, and it's taken its toll over the 20 years between pushing the snow with the wing down, full load of sand, and going up the hills. I mean, I see it struggle, and I have to add oil every storm. So I mean, it's well underpowered. This time it had a lot of downtime this year, and I was actually stepping in with the mechanic to keep it going so we'd have the truck. The sander chain, we had a lot of problems with that, and we actually had to lay a piece of steel down in the track where it was because the salt was starting to spill out. So we had taken care of that. Quite honestly, it's two trucks in one. It takes care of Route 68, Old Princeton Road, Old Princeton Cutoff, Dogwood North, South, and at times plows the school and the rec field. It takes 2 hours for one cleanup from the center line to the edge of the road with that truck. And that's just doing Route 68. And when that truck is down, I have to take another truck out to run tandem with a truck that's just running 11-foot plow, which takes 3 hours to do one trip to that one truck does. Plus, I'm taking that truck off. It's another route, so there's another route not being maintained at that time also. To complete the cleanup, and it's nothing's been touched. None of the side roads and nothing. Believe it or not, it is a very long road, Route 68. That you're doing 20 miles an hour. It takes that long to do a pass. So it being down, the truck it's a big asset to it because it plows 22 feet of road at once. It plows right from the center line to the fog line every time it plows. So, with the 98 truck down, with the 98 wing truck down, public safety service goes down, accidents go up, and we'd like to continue to keep the roads clear and safe with your help.
So Travis, explain. So last year we bought a truck, and that was replacing. Correct me if I'm wrong. You were cannibalizing one truck to fix the other truck, and that's the one we got rid of those two and we replaced with a new one. Is that correct?
The 97 was the one we replaced,
Yeah.
which is the sister of the 98. We said we'd keep the 98 for somewhat parts that we could get off of it till we could replace it. Quite honestly, the 97 it's hard. It's hurt. It's got major electrical issues on it. Right now, that's why we got rid of it.
Okay.
Some of the stuff that's on it, I mean, I didn't make the budget. You know, the capital planning for when the vehicles were going to be done. I was the mechanic on them. I fixed them up. I kept them running as best we could with what we had, and it's just a tired truck. I'm not looking to just throw something in there to just throw it in there. But it is 20 years old. It is the sister of the other one. If getting rid of it, getting a new one, would one strengthen the fleet, and then we would take both of those trucks and sell them, and they would both go. All of it would go back into free cash.
Have you been having any electrical problems with the 98?
I had the cigarette lighter one didn't work for charging purposes. We had some ground issues. A lot of the batteries and stuff lay underneath the bed, so every time the chain comes around, it dumps it right on top. So we're constantly keeping track of that. And like I said, before we got to it, just so everybody understands, is that going forward, and since I've been there, including the brand new one that we just got, before it even goes out and sees anything, we open up everything, we undercoat everything. Frame, chassis, you name it, all underneath is done. And you can come down and see the trucks, and I'll tell you what, the ones that we have done with this stuff, this undercoating, it's a little more expensive, but it's better for the person putting it on, and so on and so forth. But it honestly has done a great job. We used to see rust coming through, and you can look at the 98 because we just didn't do it to it because we didn't have time. But going forward, the maintenance that the guys do, and we have a maintenance plan on, I feel the trucks will last much longer than what we have here, and not a lot less repairs. In other words, we're taking care of the trucks a lot better than what they had been. So
Sounds like it. I mean, you think she's got one more year in her?
I mean, it's like anything. You get enough money, it'll last you a year. You know what I mean? I don't know what's going to go. And like I said, by pushing the engine as long as it's gone,
Yeah.
and knock on wood, for the repairs, and it did hold up this year, the truck does go under a lot of stress, period. You know, and if I felt that it was something that we could push off, and I don't know, like next year, how many people are going to have their fingers in the pot looking to get vehicles, and being that this is a $200,000 vehicle, I understand that the PD's not in this year, which is helpful there. And not only that, the longer I wait, the more the truck goes up. So
What's the lead time on a truck like this?
lead time,
Are they
when
readily available, or do you have to like?
No, I have to order it. So, in other words, like when we had it at town meeting and they passed it last year, I ordered it the next day, and it was pretty much a Christmas present. You know, so it got to us there, and we had to kick around the 97. It worked for us, but it was tough.
If this truck is replaced, how does that put the fleet? Is it pretty updated?
The next one
then?
is an 04, so we're out for that.
When do you see that one? in?
I wouldn't say. I mean, we did this one at 20 years. I would say look at that to do it. You know, if we could possibly stretch that truck
Is
out.
there any other equipment down there that needs to be updated? Or
Yeah, we have an 06 F450, which they run around about 75,000, and that's probably the 06 F450 is in dire straits of having that done. That was the one I had showed you some pictures of, and we had to box out the dump body because it had pushed through the floor. So
Travis, is there, can you repurpose one of the newer trucks and put a wing on it and do that, and then get something like a 450 to do some of the plowing of the other roads, instead of getting a big dump truck?
I'm not quite, because it's taken a big truck from its route already.
Right, but I guess what I'm trying to say is if you took a decent truck that we have now and put that on this route, put the wing on it, pay for that, can we get by with then purchasing a new like F450 with a plow to do some of the side roads?
But you're taking a full-size truck. Every truck has got its own route,
Okay.
a main route. So that's what. And then when you build a wing truck, the truck is actually extended for the frame because the piece attaches in the center
So
of
the
the truck.
frame is different than
Yeah,
a usual
it's
six-wheel
extended.
truck. Okay.
But every truck we have is on a main route. Every guy's got a main route. Other than I got the 450s and they clean up the intersections, they hit little spots off of the roads for the other trucks so they can get there more often, keep roads open. So I mean, they do the small trucks, when I do have 2 people in them, they help out a lot.
But as far as the condition of the fleet, the last 4 or 5 years, you've got a new grader, loader, backhoe, a 1-ton, and 2 big trucks, or 1.
We got, just so everyone understands, they were used backhoe, which is an old,
but
they
it
were a used
replaced
grader.
the old Ford,
There was
which
a-
was a big upgrade.
Yeah.
It was 4-wheel drive, so it was a big step up.
Right.
The grader is used, but it's a nice,
It's an
nice
07 grader. It's
Yeah.
a nice truck. Isn't it? No, don't get me wrong, they're not nice, but they're not brand new. So we weren't
The
paying.
loader's brand new.
The loader was brand new. We have a 15 freight. We got an 18 freight, and then we got this would be a 19. We wouldn't get any more big ones for a while, and then the one that would be on the list would be an 06 to replace the 06 F450.
Just small, lower cost.
Yeah,
So we do have some
75.
decent stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this big. What happens is it wasn't being done. So unfortunately,
It
some
can't
of
go
these
ahead.
trucks. Yeah. What happens is that's why you don't want to buy everything together, because then you
Yeah.
have to replace everything
Yeah.
together.
Mhm.
You look to step it out, so, but unfortunately, it wasn't done. So this is the situation we're in, and I think showing that what we've done, we want to continue it. So.
Okay, well, we're gonna sort of consider
Mhm.
all these at the same time here as we're presenting to them, so I appreciate you making your case here, and we'll move on.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Travis.
Thank you.
I'd just like to thank Travis. He spent a lot of time educating me, for sure. He considers these things a lot, and I think he's pretty constrained in terms of his spending, trying to advocate for the town. So just wanted to say that and appreciate it.
Okay, thanks. All right, who's next? Chief?
It's like Bob's up, huh?
I failed to, and sorry, Chief, just 1 second. I failed to explain some of these things because we're not all in it every day. So just wanted to go over just a couple things on the left side. So wage study is something that I'm requesting in order to update what's now a 4 or 5-year-old wage study for the town. The streeter, engineering, and legal, that's if the town votes there's a citizen's petition in the warrant to accept Streeter Road. There's engineering and legal costs. That's what that would be. The kitchen steamer comes directly from the Quabbin Regional School District to upgrade their kitchen steamer. The it says PB bills. It's planning board bills that was voted at a selectmen's meeting to put on a special town meeting, an older bill to pay, where we would try and collect that money back, but we're going to pay it up front. And then on the operation side, town center is town center engineering mitigation. The chief's going to talk about AEDs. We think we might have another source of funding here, but we're including it in. The other source would be the Holden Hospital account. Checking with accounting to see if that's a good use of that money or a proper use of that money. For AEDs, the turnout gear is firefighter gear, as the chief will explain, and the library is maintenance. And then the library item on the left, which I skipped over, is the roof. The request for $250,000 to replace the roof.
And just real quick, the existing debt that we are paying off.
The dump truck that was mentioned before, and other items that we have already committed to in the past.
Are you sure that's correct? Because I'm just one line with the 2013 roads project is on for 165,000.
So 175 is the money that I've committed in this budget to help pay for that. It does not cover all the debt.
Okay.
It's just an injection to lower that impact on the operating budget, those one-time costs. So it can be adjusted. But yeah, you're right. It's not even equal.
So you broke it out just because you're saying that's kind of what free cash is funding?
Yes, and I wanted to be transparent about where that free cash is going. So 175 is unassigned for actual items to pay for previous debt.
We'll get Chief you up there a couple times. If you want to sort of go through.
Okay, what would you like to start with?
How about we start with the additional manpower?
Yes, right to the big one. I have some notes here, some kind of major points there. So basically, I mean, it's always a challenge for us for staffing, and as the years go by, it gets harder and harder to get people that are interested in joining the department, going through all the training, maintaining the training, going on the calls. And the last 2 years, it's become even more apparent. So under the current model, we're not really, it's kind of like an archaic system that we're running with an on-call system at night. So in 2017, we had 35 medical calls where we weren't able to transport. We only had one member that showed up to those calls. They provided basic first aid until mutual aid could show up to that call and transport. So we're losing out on that revenue funding from that. And the biggest problem, the time frame for us, is 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. After that, our calls drop off pretty dramatic after 11 p.m. By hiring another full-time firefighter paramedic, 6 days a week we could cover 15-hour blocks from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. That would give us a paramedic on with another firefighter, paramedic, or EMT to cover that consistently. And it would target, it would go Monday through Saturday. Sundays would stay the way they are now, 11-hour blocks. But it would alleviate some of the more difficult times, as you can imagine, Friday and Saturday nights, especially during the warmer weather. Finding people to volunteer their time to stay on call at home and be available for that specific time frame is becoming more and more challenging. And this plan here is looking to alleviate that.
Has this been coming? Meaning, has it like annually or every couple of years? It's just been getting sort of harder and harder.
Progressively,
Yeah,
yes,
progressive.
yes.
Better word.
I mean, I would say probably in the last 3 to 4 years, it's become. I mean, we've always had staffing issues. Unless you go back like 15 years ago,
Yeah.
maybe a little longer, then it wasn't as much of an issue. But yeah, as the years go by, it gets increasingly, and I would say the last 2 years, it's become more prominent. The funding for this, I moved funding around. So if we were fully funded this year, it'd be a $41,000 position. But I'm only requesting $18,571. One would hold off the hire until September. That saves a couple of months. Plus, we have to go through the whole hiring process. Two, I moved money from overtime and call wages, and then from training to compensate the other half of that.
Was that about the
So-
same 10 grand that he put in that line item
Yes.
here after? Okay.
Yeah, and that was basically to try to make it as palatable as possible. To kind of do it in stages where this year we'd get that 18,000, take money from the budget that we already have, some of the increase, and make it a little bit easier to fit into the budget. And then in the following year, it'd be another $9,000 to fully fund that position.
Nothing's ever palatable in Hubbardston.
No, but I was trying. That's the key. Trying the best I could to mitigate it as much as possible.
Okay.
Because I know it's a big ask. So.
As far as
No, I was gonna say, so, I mean, this has been an issue not just in Hubbardston, but
No, it's
everywhere that has
everywhere,
call
yes.
departments.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in a town in New Jersey where I was a volunteer EMT through college and everything else, and it was the same thing. It was volunteer. They couldn't get volunteers anymore, and eventually the town just took it over and incorporated their EMS into their fire department. So this
Yeah.
is not unique, as you
No.
know, to Hubbardston.
Yeah.
People just aren't volunteering. They aren't.
There's very few departments out there that don't have these issues. So.
how this is just more of an operational thing, just so we have an idea. And I know this can't be the same answer every time, but generally, if we have to wait for mutual aid in a situation like this, how long is the wait? Would you say?
What happens is dispatch will dispatch the call out, and then if there's no response after 3 minutes, it's automatic mutual aid. There'll be a retone for us, and then the nearest available community will be dispatched. Sometimes that happens, and the second person might sign on afterwards, or
Yeah.
another person, so they'll get canceled. Otherwise, they're en route. So if you look at like Rutland coming to this community, it's about 8 minutes just to the town line. Then you have that 3 minutes, so you're talking 8, 9, 10, 11 before they're even crossing the town border, maybe 10 minutes. But we try to have it where the nearest community. So if you're out on the fringes, it's a little bit more of a quicker response.
Sure.
Because if it's closer to Gardner will be activated. Westminster, Barry, vice versa. So.
Sure.
But I also
So-
imagine our surrounding towns, with the exception of probably Gardner and maybe Westminster, and please correct me if I'm wrong, they're all going to be call at those hours too. I mean, right? I mean, Rutland's doesn't have 24/7 full-time
Rutland
coverage.
does have
They do
24/7
have
now.
seven.
Yes,
Princeton,
they
I'm
just
sure,
2
doesn't.
years ago. No.
What about Barry and
Barry?
Templeton?
Barry has, they try to staff it now, but they have a 24-hour medic, but they have on-call people that they pay to stay at home, and then they come out when there's a call to supplement that call paramedic.
Okay.
I know that they have trouble filling some of those shifts. I don't know the consistency in it, but that's what they're striving to do.
Okay.
And I don't know how much they pay their staff to stay at home, but I know that they do get a stipend for that.
And
But
if-
these towns also are not flush with 7 ambulances on at once, so.
Yeah.
Right, so if they're on a call in Barry, they can't come and help us here, and so.
Potentially they could, but they, like you said, they all have staffing issues. So if they're staffing that first call, you know, that's the job, and then usually you have trouble staffing that second call. So, yeah, if a community's already out on a call, them coming back to assist us is less likely.
Right.
Yeah.
So what, you know, you have here only having one EMT respond to 35 medical calls in 2017.
Yeah.
How can you monetize that? Just so, if you can even monetize that. Like what sort of, you know, you mentioned the revenue thing, but there's a certain cost that's going to come into it as well. How's that affected?
I mean, there's a potential for anywhere from, if you take the calls, average it out. I'm not tracking what type of calls it is if it is BLS, ALS, but 60% of our calls are ALS and 40 are BLS. So if you factor it in, there's a potential for anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 of revenue that's lost there by not transporting those calls. Could be more. You know, I'm being conservative. I don't want to throw an inflated number out there.
How many
But-
calls do you typically respond to in a year?
We average about 650 a year.
So that's 5% of the calls.
There's only 6 members that respond on a regular basis on call.
Yes. That's
not a lot.
We have a calendar that we set up monthly, and we basically ask people to volunteer to sign up that I will be around. I will respond to any fire EMS call from the time period. Some people have to modify it. I actually have a couple calendars here. You can see this is March of 16, and that's March of 18 where we are now. And you're putting your name on there saying you're going to respond. Yeah, you're in town and you respond. Some people have to put in, after 8 o'clock because that's when, by the time they get home from work. Some people have to put time when they, 5 a.m. because they have to get out early. And you can see as compared to the two there that there's more and more holes and more nights with just one person on. Now that doesn't mean that just because that one person's on that somebody else, the hope is that they will come out. But obviously we've had times where that doesn't happen, so.
Does the lack of interest in having that sort of a position, is it at all affected by what we pay for a minimum? Like whether it's a 2-hour, I don't even know what our policy is, but do our policies affect that?
Usually, like medical call like that, it's a 2-hour turnaround. And, these guys get anywhere from the newer guys, I think around $14 an hour, and then you get the senior guys up into the 20s or low 20s. I don't think it's necessarily monetary as far as the call guys, and if they're watching, they'll probably shoot me for that. I mean, everybody loves more money, but I think for most people, it's just the time that it takes that is involved from the day one when you sign up, and if you don't have any of the training already, to go through 240 plus hours to become a firefighter, and then another 180 plus to become an EMT, and then to do the training and the updating every 2 years. I think it becomes too taxing for people to make that commitment.
Sure.
Some guys they're huge into it, and we're lucky to have those 6. The others help, but it's more sporadic, and it's always been that way. The more you have a roster, even when we had 30 people or 35 back 20 years ago, you always had a group at the top that were really active, a middle, and then you had the end where they were teetering on, am I on the department? Where am I going with this? And eventually they probably leave. It's just that now the roster's down to 18 people. 3 of them are full-time and myself. 2 of them are per diems, and that leaves 13 people that are call.
Okay.
Everyone want to get their EMT. All right.
All right.
I mean, public safety is one of the big things that we do here, right? I
Mhm.
mean, it's one of the core functions of government, and if you're telling us that, you know, medical care and public safety is endangered, not endangered, but at risk for a good chunk of the hours of the day where you see high call volume, I mean, I think it's something we have to seriously consider.
We do, especially with the revenue that we would be getting here based on actual
Right.
data, you know, so
Yeah.
not to say that, but just factoring that in as well.
Right.
Yeah, well, with that estimate of 20, it's basically not getting, it's basically getting it back, because that's what we should have had before,
Right.
you know, previous years where it wasn't as bad. But yeah, we're not getting that, and I kind of see that in the numbers. But we also have a potential for gaining mutual aid, and that's where we can make a little bit, because if area towns know that we're on,
Sure.
you know, if Barry knows that we're on call and I'm responding from Adams Road to the station, it's going to take me about 7-8 minutes on a good night to get out the door. That's even more of a delay for them. They're going to call Rutland because they know that they're 24.
Sure.
Depending on in the area town, that might change their mind where now they know that we have staffing on until 10 at night. They may be more apt to call us because they know we have that staffing to go immediately.
Okay.
All right. But at the minimum, I mean, if we put $18,000 more into this to get that full-time position, we should, based on the numbers, at least come close to breaking even.
Yeah, 18's being moved, around, 17 and change around in the budget now. I'm asking for an additional 18, and then next year, because the
9.
position, it'll be another 9, because they'll be off of probation, it'll be about a $42,000 position, so I don't want anybody to get to, it's only $18,000.
No,
Yeah.
for this year.
Just to be
No,
clarified.
you gotta present it like that,
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Okay. All right, that's item number 1. Let's anyone has any more on that? All right, mitigation.
Yeah, so
Well, go to whatever order you want to do.
yeah, let's see. Yeah, and mitigation. Yeah, diesel exhaust. You know, there's high suspicions now that it causes cancer, and it affects firefighters. And every time a vehicle starts up, their gear is on the apparatus bay right next to the vehicles. So they start up, it's blowing that exhaust right into their gear. This system is designed to have an exhaust pipe that comes down. It sucks the exhaust out, filters it, and then releases the air back out. It's basically the standard now for any firehouse. I was hoping to get it with the new fire station, but it apparently is not going to happen anytime soon. And I figured one of the questions would be, well, what happens if 5 years down the road we do build a station? I did ask the sales rep. He said about 70 to 80% of this system could be moved into a new station. So,
Okay.
And this is the big yellow pipes that come down onto the
yes,
trucks.
yeah.
Is this something that they could, it's like a quick disconnect, or could they forget it on the truck and rip it out, or does it just fall off?
It's quick disconnect. So
just
something
falls
would
off.
have to fail, the mechanism for it to rip off.
Okay.
And then I think there's safety guards on that it's not going to like rip the system off. I think there's a safety guard where it's supposed to normally detach. It uses like a vacuum seal onto the exhaust pipe. That'll release once the truck moves. But if somehow that fails, I think upper on the exhaust pipe, it'll detach so it's not pulling the whole system out of the building.
Where are the penetrations in the building? How's that going to work?
It would be the rear of the building.
Yeah.
I don't know
Just the
exactly.
box off the rear or whatever?
Yeah. And we're looking for one for station 1 and then one for station 2 also for the 2 ambulances.
So, okay, so that's that full
That's
number?
included in
Yes, that includes both of them.
Um,
I think station 1 was 32.5 and the other one was the remainder of it, 20. I don't have it in front of me, it's somewhere in here.
Is one of them, just because I have no idea, is one of the stations, 80% more important than the other station?
We've debated this because one is we have 2 trucks where diesel trucks, especially at the other station, a lot of times they're cold, because even in the winter we can't fully heat it. Cold diesel engine doesn't run as well, and produces probably more diesel exhaust. But then there's the bay where they start up, we have doors to block the bay off, but those doors are opening and they're allowing some of that exhaust to come into the headquarters, into the office space. So it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm surprised this isn't like required by code? Like, are we grandfathered in or something like that, or?
I don't believe so. I think this is included. There's some, and I haven't gotten into it yet. I just heard about it last week, that OSHA's getting involved,
Yeah.
and I believe this is one of those things that they're looking for.
Didn't
So-
we, was this presented at one point, a 2-year thing? Splitting the cost between 2 years, or am I remembering that?
It was,
right?
so Brian's original budget had it split, Chief explained it to me, so that the real split would be if you did one station
Okay.
and not the other, but there's other considerations, like, you know, the carcinogens and what's that doing to the gear and the people, so you could also pay for it over 2 years,
Okay.
but that would delay implementing it until we were able to go over our next year fiscal bridge, so it wouldn't be till next July. So even if you paid for it over 2 years, you're gonna wait a while and still be exposing the station to the carcinogens.
Did they, is it less, because it's, you know, everything, when you buy more at once, usually cheaper, is it less expensive to do them both at once?
I believe so. I had it as, you know, I presented it as one project to the
Okay.
sales rep. Of course, this would have to go out to bid. But yeah, the way Brian had it, initially I thought it was going to be 50,000. Turns out it was 57, but he was going to do 25. So my plan was, I figured it would, you know, there was savings there by doing them both. So I figured I'd have to wait until the end of fiscal FY19 and kind of start the project, pay for part of it, and go into the next fiscal year to get that other 25. So the project got done at once.
Okay.
But I could definitely ask and see how much of an impact that would be to the price. So
Okay. Okay. Anything further on that one?
So it's 50 for one or both?
it's 57 for both stations.
Both, okay.
The only thing that's left out of it, which I forgot about, which I was reminded by the Barry Fire Chief, is the wiring's not included. They wire everything back to the panel. We would just need to hire an electrician to put that in. But I think that's something we could do out of that operating budget.
Oh, you must have
Yeah.
an electrician on staff who could wire that thing up for you.
Well, I don't know about that, but I can find somebody. So, okay.
All right. Next.
It would be the turnout gear. I'm looking for 8 sets that we have that are 9 years old plus. NFPA says after 10 years, you're not supposed to have your gear in service anymore, and the gear cannot be used at the Mass Fire Academy. That's strictly enforced. So if you show up with any gear, you can't participate. That's past the 10-year date.
So the 9-year gear that we currently have, is it like original condition stuff, or has it been refurbished or whatever else over
There's no
time?
refurbished. That's the original. Yeah. So it's time to be replaced.
And what is it, like each of the 8 include?
You would have your turnout coat and your pants.
Is that
That's
expensive?
it. Yes. Yeah. It's actually more expensive than that. I'll have to do a little finagling, but I think I have 2,100 a piece. I think it's actually 24 now. So
Okay.
But
I'll
helmets
make it
have to be
work.
replaced a certain amount of time too?
yes, they do too. But we have enough of that to make that work for now. The biggest thing was that turnout gear, the coat and the pants that were the biggest issue.
So do we have just 8 sets now that are 9 years, or do we have other sets that are?
We have other sets that are in rotation, new employees that have come on that their gear is only a few years old.
Yep.
You know, some that might be 5 years old, some that have only been a couple. So this would bring everybody up to date that has that 9-year set of gear.
Does that go out to bid?
At that price,
Under 50,
no, yeah.
under 50, you would have to get three
quotes, yeah.
quotes, not bid.
Okay. All right. Well.
And then the other one that I had was the AEDs.
Yeah.
And I put it in initially as a capital item because I wasn't sure how it would be approached, and I didn't want to miss the deadline. But I believe it's holding hospital money. Well, that's what the funding source I'm looking to use. And I believe I just need the select board to pre-approve it before I use a purchase out of that account. I've never actually done it before, so Ryan was going to look into it just to confirm.
I mean, it's an allowable expense from the
So
whole hospital.
I have an inquiry into accounting first before we do anything more expensive. They can't get back to me till Wednesday when they're in the office. Hoping to hear from them tomorrow, because I wanted to know this answer. I agree after looking at everything that this would be applicable to Holden Hospital. Fire department's never used it. It would be a good use of that money and alternate revenue for the budget.
Should we make a motion and vote tonight then?
I think we could handle it at the next meeting once we know.
And I just want to make a change, and I'll do that officially. I was asking for 3, but since I don't need the Lucas anymore, I'd like to add additional. They're about $1,900 a piece to have 4. 2 would go on, 1 on each ambulance, and then there would be 2 of the engines that would have an AED on them also.
That don't have an AED or haven't?
They
would be
currently do,
replaced?
but ours are in the point of if they have the OK symbol on it, if we come in tomorrow and it says it's not, I forget what it comes across as a warning, but if it doesn't have that OK on it, it's gone. They're that old.
like a filter that's continuously
No,
degrading.
they do, the ADs have a computer, they're doing routine checks on themselves.
Yeah.
You can have a low battery or you can have a programming issue or all that. They say on the screen it's okay, so you know that it's okay for the day to use
What's
it.
it say if it's not okay?
I don't know, because I haven't run into that. I think like it might say a low battery if it's a battery issue. If it's a software issue, I'm not sure. But they're at the point where if it doesn't, there's nothing that the company can do for service on it. It's out of service. That's how old they
It's
are.
like your
so-
fridge.
Not feeling well today?
Yeah.
You know, it's like your appliances at home. They only last a certain amount of years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I forget where those are at, but it's 12 to 15 year range somewhere in there. So
So besides, so where do you have an AED now? Where they're obviously in the ambulance.
yeah,
Do you have any? You have them on the fire trucks.
yes,
Do police cars have AEDs?
yeah.
They do.
Theirs are newer than ours. So when the cruiser goes out, I believe that if a sergeant's on and then a patrolman, each car has a AED
Has an
in
AED,
it.
and they know how
And
to
they're
use it.
Life Pack 1000s.
Okay.
That they have.
Does the school have an AED?
Yes.
It's by the gym, isn't it? Is that where?
I know there's one there, and I think there's another one somewhere in the building.
Okay.
I would assume by the nurse's station, but I'm
How
not
about here?
positive.
One here?
I didn't know that. I'll find out.
Not in this building, though.
Okay.
We probably. I
But
wonder.
there's one in the car if we need one,
That's
if
true.
they're here.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, AED save lives, right? It comes from the
Yeah.
cardiologist, but AED save lives, and
Yeah.
we do have a senior center here. So I'm wondering if we get some new AEDs, if one of those old ones maybe can be put over here.
Yeah, the only thing is, I think they become, the longer we have, they be, if the sooner we get them out of service, I think the better. So maybe it would be, I can see what kind of funding, maybe I can get 5 instead of 4. And
Yeah,
we
I mean,
put one in.
Yeah, and I think maybe having
Yeah.
one in the even though they're in the police cars, I think maybe having one here would be a good thing.
Yeah, I'd have to double check with accounting on how much is in the fund, but I think there could be enough to.
Yeah, check on it. If you guys can work on that, maybe.
Sure.
I should have an answer
Hold
tomorrow.
hospital.
That it?
I think so.
Okay, thanks for coming in.
All right.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, alphabet wise, because I have no favorites. Library. So both the CPC and the library here to discuss this portion.
Okay.
And CPC also has articles if we want to talk about that as well.
Yeah, might as well.
Tom's gonna he's gonna represent us, because he's.
Stick this in and pull up the April 9th PowerPoint.
This Tom?
That's an obsolete version. Got you the new color version. I found a couple little errors and I fixed them and thought I'd hand out a new version. Thank you. And Lori, I can give you this electronically when we're all done, so you can have it.
Yeah, I actually have one, I think.
No,
Well,
that's
unless you
it's
add
the
it.
latest version. It has
Oh, okay.
April 9th down on the bottom of the
Oh, okay, thank you.
last page. Well, we're here today to talk about the library. We call it a new roof, but it's more than a new roof. The library is a gift, very generous gift of Jonas Clark, 150 years ago, just about, and it's held up very well. It's a very well-made building, but the roof is in need of a repair.
what we plan on doing is taking off 2 layers of the existing asphalt, removing any rotted roof beams or structures that we find. We've been inspected and we think there's a minimum amount of that, but there may be some. Install moisture barrier, heavy duty copper, fix the tower, so-called tower slate, and install a new slate would be our preference. Gutters and downspouts, water runoff, storm drains. We think there's an issue in the basement. I think water's getting into the basement. You can see the water coming up through the floor some places. Just haven't had the courage to pull the trap door and go in there, but someday we will. And there's a lot of brickwork and repointing that needs to be done. We were very fortunate to get a CPC grant. I think it was voted on in 16. It was a $10,000 grant, and we searched for an architect. We looked at a couple different alternatives. Found a very good architect who specializes in roofs. His name is Nault, out of Worcester. He does some pretty big projects like the tile roof on Worcester City Hall. And, he's very well qualified. And he went through the building, came out with a nice report, gave us 3 alternatives for the roof and that other work I talked about. Slate, imitation slate, or asphalt. The estimated cost for the slate, and that's the whole enchilada. That's, scaffolding and all that kind of stuff you have to do a roof. But the basics are what I described in the previous slide. But the slate's $233, the imitation slate's $144, and the asphalt's $86. The estimated life on this is 150 years plus. We have 100 and something 50 years on the building now, on parts of the slate that weren't removed when the asphalt was put on. We think imitation slate is an unproven product, but the claims are that it would last 50 years. But it's basically a polymer or a rubber kind of substance that looks like slate. And the asphalt is least expensive and the lowest life. These guys would also like to claim 40 years, but even at 40 years, you have to buy it maybe 4 times or 5 times. And so I take this number and multiply it by 4 or 5, in this case 5, come up with that number. This multiply it by 3, because in 150 years you got to buy the first one and 2 more. And then the slate, of course, you buy it once and there's really minimum repairs. We're very fortunate to have a library director who also is the director at Petersham, and they have a slate roof, and she's quantified the maintenance costs on the slate roof over there, and they're very low, less than $1,000 a year in most cases. So these numbers down here is how much money you'd have to have in the bank today to fund the project. You'd put $233,000 in the bank and spend it one time. $144, 144 times 3 is 432. You'd put that in the bank, you'd spend one of them and hold on to the other 2 and watch them grow over time. And then 86 in the bank and spend it once and have the rest of it in the bank 5 times. So you can see that what's called present value, the slate is the best value for the money spent. These numbers are smaller than they really are, because inflation will be outrunning the ability to earn money on investments with that money.
Tom, did you guys talk about at all like what the projected estimated life of the building itself is? Did that come up in your discussions? We start talking crazy 150 year sort of things. We're going to be like on the moon or something.
I'll be here. I'll watch it.
but still, I didn't know if that actually came in, because I know it's an old building to start with.
Yeah, it is.
So another 150 years from now, is that thing still?
Well, I haven't had that exact question asked.
Okay.
But there are certainly buildings in Boston that are 250.
Right.
I'd say 300, but I'm not certain.
Yeah, I don't know.
But we went through our 250th country's anniversary here, or what do they call it? Some kind of centennial, and it won't be maintenance free.
Yeah.
And things will change, and I foresee someday maybe we'll have a little different renovation over there, and we'll get handicapped access and some of these other things that we need. But that's a whole nother world.
Sure.
Everyone who's looked at the building said it's been amazingly good shape. The thing about a library, of course, is that it doesn't have fire extinguishers and this kind of stuff because of what's in the building. So another feature of the slate roof, of course, is that it's fireproof. The way these alternative roofs fail is by sunlight. They come down, they ultraviolet waves crack up the hydrocarbons, and these are both hydrocarbon-based things, tars and asphaltenes, and they fail. This, of course, is immune to that. So I think it's the highest value choice. So we're here tonight really to recommend slate, 150 years. It restores it to the original condition. The building had slate on it, and this is the most significantly, or most historically significant building in our town, I think. Municipal building. There's two churches there that should deserve some consideration, but as a municipal building, this is it. We want to get back to the original configuration, preserve the building, fireproof roof, because we have town offices, a historical collection, our library in it, and we think it's the overall most effective cost. How do we pay for it? Funding. Here are the costs carried forward from the previous sheet. Here's what we think the life is. Here's what we think those multiple purchases are. The CPC has been very, very, very effective in getting us funds to defray some of this cost. First, thanks for getting us the original $10,000 grant that let us get an architect involved and get this whole ball rolling. But they're prepared to come forward with $133,000, knocking our costs down to 100. And we're not going to make any promises, but by putting on slate, you become eligible for a Mass Historical Commission grant, which is where the town has to spend the money and then they get reimbursed for the amount of the grant. If you put on the other two materials, you're not eligible for such a grant. This is, I think, affordable within our, from the outside. I think it is. But I'd like to work with Select Board and Finance Committee and see if that's reasonable to get it from free cash or stabilization or some of these funds you guys always talk about.
How is is it unanimous between the library and the CPC on slate? I mean, is this?
Well, it's a community preservation fund, and this would be preserving the building. I won't speak for them, but
I'm just
anybody here
wondering.
from the CPC could tell us whether it was unanimous in your crowd?
I don't know if we really voted on that. I think
Okay.
we just voted on how much funding we
Yeah.
could support the project.
And that was 133.
That was 133, and then let them decide how they want to go forward with restoring the roof.
Was
Sure.
there any other funding left? Like, was there more available than the
For-
133? Or
Yeah,
you
for
just
the project.
designated that for
Yeah,
this
no, well,
project?
there is other money, but not enough to fund the whole thing.
And the other monies are not necessarily earmarked, but you're being discussed for the
Two other church
Churches.
projects,
Okay.
both churches in town.
Okay.
So the CPC was very creative. They're putting what is essentially, just to simplify it, a down payment down from their reserve funds and then borrowing over time in order to accomplish these projects, which is how they can fit all three into their budget.
If I could ask that question, Tom.
Sure.
In terms of the grant, when you said eligible, do we know for a fact that we would be eligible? Because I remember a few years back when we were doing all the work prior to the buildings that didn't get passed, one of the things that was looked into was the condition of the library. And we found out at that time that because the library is not just a library in this town, and you got the town offices, a lot of money is not available to you. So in being a historical one, does that still require it as a library, or can?
This organization, we are eligible. There's another organization, the Mass Library Association,
Yes.
help me then.
Yeah, it's basically the library commission for the state.
Mm-hmm.
And
Because our library here is part of a multi-use building, we don't qualify for their construction grants or anything like that.
Okay.
as long as there is anything other than a library in the building.
Yeah, when they did the building needs
Right.
study in
That's what I'm
2012 or
talking
whatever
about,
it was.
Yeah, it's a different organization
Yeah.
though.
Now, this is the this is where we put
Yeah.
the library on the historic register, the national and the state historical registers. They're the ones that say, okay, fine, if you're gonna historically preserve it, we'll help you out to a certain amount,
Yeah.
you know, with matching funds.
Great.
But they've, in the letter we received, and quite honestly, I forget, I don't have it right with me now, but we've received a letter from them authorizing different things that we put in there that we wanted to fix. And the one area that they said they couldn't approve was the asphalt, roof, or they don't recommend the architectural shingles. So it's, you know, if we want to get any money, we have to do the real thing.
Vin? So I just heeded home.
I just wanted to qualify the remarks about the church projects.
Oh, sure.
In that light of the recent court case, this is not a project for the church, it's a project for the historical preservation of the churches.
All right.
You know, it's
Gotcha.
coming out of historical, it has nothing to do with the religious context whatsoever.
Okay.
Tom, do we
Okay,
know
now-
why the slate was pulled off and replaced with asphalt? Was it
I
thought
have-
at the time that it was a better product, or was it all?
I have been looking, I've got all the minutes that exist, and I've been going through them. I can't find anything
I think you just hit a hot button right
that
there.
says why. Believe me, I have looked.
Do we know around what year it was done?
Around isn't it 59 or 60? They tore everything off and.
Put on asphalt.
Would have just been cost, probably?
So I guess my opinion on I think that if CPC and Grant is paying for Slate, it's beautiful and that's fantastic. I can't wrap my head around 150 years, quite honestly. I'm just being honest. I can't. I feel like that's such a long time.
The economics work even if it's about 80 years.
Okay.
The economics are still true.
I lived in a house built in 1710, and the original slates were still on the roof.
Wow.
In Greenfield.
Wow.
I think I'm coming away with two takeaways. One, we want to make sure we don't put a roof on a building that isn't going to last a good long time. I'll have the architect look at that. I will show you with numbers, or maybe on another occasion, that the economics stay true. See, these numbers are pretty far apart. Here, these numbers are pretty far apart. You don't have to go the whole 150 years to still have the economics favor Slate. I think it comes around 80, 90 years. It still is favorable to Slate. It's still within our lifetime.
And part of the reason, quite honestly, that we're bringing this up is, sorry to interrupt
No,
real quick,
go
but
ahead.
just another, is we've got, and we're going to continue to sort of go over it here. We've got some other opportunities in town, specifically this year, that has to do with the town center reconstruction, that has to do with some other work that we're just trying to juggle on what the general feel is for what to attack with what vigor. So just wanted to sort of throw that out there. That's on the table as well. So.
Yeah, just in closing, this is our library on our town seal, and it is the face of our town. When you drive down that new road that's going to come through here, the library is there it is there again.
We'd have to print like a whole new letterhead if we didn't have it.
No, what I'm saying is it's the face of the town, and it was a gift. We
Yeah.
should respect the giver. We should preserve it, and we should dress it up for the new face we're going to put on the whole town.
Well said.
We'll play Tom.
You just yank that out?
Yes.
Thanks a lot,
Thanks,
folks.
Tom. And everybody else.
And thanks to the CPC help.
And did you need any clarification on the 6,000 for maintenance? It's all safety issues. It's lighting and it's, weather drains and stuff like that, that 6,000.
Yeah. No, you want to just address that again, just so we can hear that?
Okay.
We're going through everything
Let me just get
fairly
it. I
detailed,
have
if you don't
my-
mind.
This
Cheat
was
sheet.
originally in the operating budget, and I
Yes.
pulled it out as a one-time expense and put it in the capital budget for transparency, but this, that was done with saying that it would be included in the capital operating budget.
Okay.
So Ryan, question about accounting there, where it says on the left, library 250,000, which is for the roof
That's going to be
project.
changed, yeah.
if CPC is giving a grant of 133, would that 250 be lowered, or do
Yeah.
we-
So this represents what the library board of trustees put in the warrant, the
Okay.
250. So that would change if
Okay.
CPC
Lot of
voted.
negotiation.
Yeah.
Anyway, exterior
Worst-
walkway
worst
lighting,
case.
okay, the current lights are not working and need to be replaced. They're located on the balcony and are run on a timer that is malfunctioning. The lack of appropriate lighting is a safety concern, especially in the winter months. Interior lighting, we'd like to replace the existing fluorescent lighting with energy efficient lights and ceiling fans. The library does not have air conditioning in the summer, and this would improve our air quality and circulation. Furnace maintenance, rebuild the boiler stack to alleviate fumes from entering the working areas of the library building. And then install a drip guard on the exterior balcony. Water and snow melt run from the balcony above to the stairs below and often refreeze, making our stairs extremely dangerous. We would like to install a drip edge to divert the water flow away from the stairs. Those granite steps are pretty lethal with some ice on them.
So would you outsource this to like a bunch of
Yeah,
different type of whatever you figured out?
yeah. It's not one project,
Right,
it's,
right.
you know,
Yep.
the normal process.
Okay.
So in that 6,000 resources that are diverted, Jane right now flushes that boiler and takes care of it every month because she loves the building. And the drip guard, the DPW has to come and clean those steps religiously in order to keep them safe.
Yeah.
So there is some extra cost in not doing it.
Yeah. Sounds good. Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, so Ryan, you want to sort of take us up to the next one there? So we've gone down to 413 on the right side there, and we're going to come back up and bring that 413 up to the operating budget up top, and then come and go down from there. Some of which was repetitive, but might as well just go through it.
Correct. You want me to go
Yeah.
over? So the senior tax work off, this is an annually appropriated at town meeting warrant article that allows our seniors to work in lieu of taxes. They do a great job. We have one that's helping us here now. It's a great program. We are meeting to discuss what that program should look like and try and make sure that it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do in the next month.
And Parks use that program a lot.
Yes, everyone does. Everyone who does likes it.
Yeah,
and I encourage
absolutely.
departments to use it more. The library we just talked about in detail. This is the DPW's request
Yep.
for a wing truck. The wage study. This is a HRS did a study in 2014 analyzing where we should be in terms of grades and steps and what monies it would cost in order to get everyone on the same page. So my budget introduces these based on their scale for FY18, and then I added COLA onto those to get us to FY19. These wage studies have a shelf life of 4 to 5 years. I contacted HRS and they would update us for 3,000 just to make sure that we are competitive and on track and that our numbers make sense,
Okay.
both up and down. The streeter, this is a warrant article in the draft that you have that we talked about at our last selectmen's meeting about engineering and laying out the road, streeter road, if it was to be accepted as a public way, and then the legal costs of granting easements and making sure that
I thought when we had that meeting with the street road people, I thought we were talking about more like a $20,000 range, weren't we?
No.
We may be mistaken.
No, I think it
but-
was lower than that. I think the 7,500 plus the 5,000 legal below is 12,500. Maybe it was a little more than
I
that,
thought
but
we were talking
I thought we were
20
talking
though.
20.
17 or something maybe.
We were.
Yeah.
We
I
were
think,
talking-
yeah, I think
I thought the
this
legal
figure
was
was
like
mentioned, but
9,000.
then someone said
Yeah,
more,
I think for a
it
safe
would more
number,
likely
we
be up in the
figured
20,000.
Yeah.
I can increase those if that's.
Yeah,
Yeah, we did. I think we figured. We figured it was like gonna be 17, but throw it at 20 to
we rounded it
cover
off,
up any
yeah.
contingencies.
Yeah.
10 and 10.
And can you bring the library down to 100? That's what it would be. I know you're doing it based on warrant. I just want to see where things are.
This
actually
is saved, so we can mess with it as much as we want. It's
Okay.
the point of the exercise.
Okay.
The kitchen steamer in the original budget I gave you several versions ago, the Quabbin School is asking. This is the one capital item they're asking for this year, which is the kitchen steamer is explained in the capital budget.
What if we said no? I mean, not that I. But like they're asking for, like.
Yeah. It would be, to me, it's the same as any other of these requests.
Yeah.
You can say yes or no, but this is in the capital budget. It wasn't appropriated in the operating budget, so it has to pass town meeting warrant.
Alright.
And these planning board bills, this is for
Is that in regards to the
Marinelli gravel pit. This is gonna be on the special town meeting warrant, the only two articles in the special town meeting currently to pay those costs, and then once they're paid, we would move into collecting and trying to get those bills paid. Right now, they're unpaid, and the organizations are waiting for payment.
So to summarize, if we kept all the items that we currently have in the budget that we've seen, that gets to the 413,100, and then added all of the additional ones we just talked about, we would be adding another $122,373, of which we don't have.
So this total here would be what we would need to pay. So we have 495, 561 in free cash. So this would put us negative free cash 122 and
Okay.
change.
Okay.
So we would have to use stabilization in order to make all of this happen.
And how about that 71,373 up top?
Part of that needs to be reserved. We're currently negotiating with the unions, and I can't really speak to that. So part of
Sure.
it has to be reserved to that, and there's extra money in there to either inject into these warrant scenarios to fund that firefighter paramedic position, or any of the other requests that have been taken out of the budget, to include a DPW foreman or accounting service, additional accounting hours, which are the three main ones.
Okay. And additional revenues on top of all this?
The stabilizations.
Yeah.
So the municipal stabilization, I've dug a lot into this. This used to be used, and I'm sure there's enough history here to explain it, but used to be used that money was put into this municipal stabilization and then it came out. This was discontinued as capital items were put back into the operating budget. So this remains a municipal stabilization. I've been asking around to see whether this needs to be continued if it's not going to be used that way, or how best to use it, and I think that's a conversation that we should have. But if you do have one, it's recommended that it is at 1.5%, and it's currently at 1.7. Stabilization, best practice financially in order to keep us where we should be, is 3 to 5%. Right now we're at 3.52% of operating budget. So this, we actually have 384 in stabilization. There's 60,000 that is dedicated to the the Gardner sidewalk program that was completed by Complete Streets and voted in the last special town meeting. 45 of that is going to pay for the engineering, so that project can go forward this summer. There's still 15 in there, but it's contingent on a grant, so we can't use that on the town center. There is an option to put that money back into stabilization, but that would have to be a town meeting vote. We'd have to add another warrant article.
All right, can you, we're just throwing numbers around here. If you zero out the dump truck, and in the event that the imitation slate would add, in addition to the 133,000, that CPC would, based on the numbers from the previous slides, it would be another 11,000. So that library number changed to 11,000. How do things shake out? Yeah, just the installation of the imitation slate was 144,000. So what I'm saying is, if the CPC paid for 133,000, it would be 11,000 more that we'd have to get from funds we don't currently have to get to the 144. So I'm just throwing out all
Okay.
scenarios here. So that's what that 11,000 would be.
To be clear to anyone watching or the crowd, this is just playing with numbers.
Right.
Nothing's being decided.
Okay. Where you guys at?
I'm sorry.
okay.
Something to consider. The AED number might come out.
Right.
And I'm a betting man occasionally, and that I think it will. The mitigation is a prime candidate for something like using municipal stabilization. So is library funds, if we were to use that account without touching the stabilization, and then there's a little bit of surplus money there, so you could still accomplish the stabilization savings. I'm just throwing out options.
Gotcha.
No
Mhm.
preferences.
Gotcha.
Can we use the stabilization for the roof? The library roof?
Could you? Yes. We can use stabilization for a great number of things.
You were saying something?
That
One
would
second,
drop
one
us
second,
below
one
3%.
I'm okay zeroing out the dump truck. I think maybe we should push that off another year. There's a lot of capital items this year, and
Do you guys wanna put it on as a debt exclusion still?
I don't know.
It'll be hard to pay for next year. It's always gonna be hard to pay
It's
for.
always gonna be hard to pay for.
Without revenue. I mean, you can always put it up to the town if they don't want it, they don't want it.
So this is the, and this is not preference, again, options, but this is a perfect item for a debt exclusion. It's a one-time increase in taxes in order to pay for something that is necessary and to remove that from future calculus in terms of capital and operating budget.
Well, we're gonna talk about that in the warrant too, right? So we'll just push it off for a minute.
Sure.
Okay.
And it took us 3 years to pass an ambulance debt exclusion.
Well, I mean, that's fine.
Right.
At the end of the day, if the town never wants to and it has no trucks, then it's the town's decision, right? But it's true. As we start getting higher and higher numbers needed out of that free cash to fund our operating budget, I think it's very dangerous to even contemplate putting more things in there.
Vin?
Just to remind everybody that the planning board bills will be reimbursable because they will pay those bills. It's just that we need to pay them before we'll get that money back.
Okay.
And we just can't count on that in terms of this calculus.
Right.
Sorry?
We just can't count on that in terms of the calculus.
That's fine.
Once
Yeah.
it's dedicated by accounting, you can't touch it.
Tom?
Just a word of caution on the imitation slate. We looked into that pretty strongly. It's a new product, and there is no standing evidence that it would last as long as they claim. And like I said when I was up there, it's a polymer or an asphaltene-based product, rubber-based. You can actually bend them, you know. And I would just strongly suggest we stay with a stone slate.
Tom, did you look into like an aluminum roof? I have it's interlock. I put it on my house. It's all aluminum. It looks like slate, and it's a lifetime warranty on it. Did you
How
look
long do
into?
you live?
Well, I don't know. I don't plan on living too long, but long enough.
Well, yeah.
I'm just wondering if that was one of the options you looked into, or
I
if it
did
was
not
just
look
those
at
three.
an aluminum roof, no.
It was not even suggested by the architect.
Yeah.
Is the library roof repair to do the full slate and an option for debt exclusion? A one-time debt exclusion?
You could do the whole thing, part of the money, and any of it could be debt excluded.
You saying the 100 in addition to the CPC?
Right, no, not the two, right, the 100, so the 250 minus the 133, that delta, and debt exclude that. And do it over one time.
Just process-wise, so they have a warrant article that's being put in, so the select board is recommending that article, so it can be written however.
Okay, Tom?
I was just gonna say, does the debt exclusion, unlike using stabilization or municipal stabilization or free cash?
Yeah, so stabilization is, you would take from stabilization as a savings account in order to pay, and I would only recommend doing that for one-time costs, like a roof. If you're doing a debt exclusion, what happens is the tax levy increases, so your revenue increases, in order to pay for that project. The difference between an override and a debt exclusion is that override permanently increases that tax base. A debt exclusion increases that tax levy for the period of time that you designate, whether that be 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, and then as soon as that cost is gone, it goes away.
So those are the questions that come up for something like this, right? If we were going to say, okay, we want to have a warrant article for $100,000 to pay for the additional money to put in, the questions inevitably come up. Well, what's that going to cost me? And so I don't know that answer. I don't know if you ran any of those numbers. Probably not, because it just came up. But
Well, for the ambulance, I know it was a $250,000 debt exclusion, and we were all assessed a one-time fee, and it averaged out to about $110
right.
per household, one time in your taxes.
So this would be 40.
So this would be half
$40,
of that.
$40 or $50.
Yeah.
We worked,
Yeah.
excuse me, we worked really hard with CPC and ourselves to keep this ask, as they call it, the $100,000 ask, to be so low that we didn't get all tangled up in debt exclusions and long-term borrowing and whatnot. We thought this was very eligible for a stabilization or free cash funding.
Understood, and you presented that as the way, and that's sort of how I caveated with earlier. We happen to have some other large scale things currently and that had already been going on, such as the town center completion design and so anyway, that's why I brought it up. That's why I said it like that, because I hear you. I'm just some other stuff that was already sort of in there as well, and I get you. I've lived here for 15 years too. I know that anytime you can avoid those words, avoid those words. Go ahead.
If I recall correctly, a debt exclusion has to go to a second vote, is that correct?
Yeah, it has to.
And
Yeah.
from what I have experienced, virtually everything that goes to that second vote is when people come out of the woodwork and vote everything sitting down, which means that your library would not have a meeting. And where the library is a building of proven endurance,
Sure.
where it is a center, it is as much of a community center as we have. I would rather not have the tease of everybody going, oh yes, it's wonderful at town meeting, and then having 5 people vote for it
Well, so
at
then,
the ballot.
and I understand you guys are putting a ton of work in through here and well presented and all that, but seeing as we do have, for example, that town center looking at 150,000 right there, you know, why don't we push it a year? I mean, is that,
I think if you put it as a debt exclusion, it will not happen.
that's what I mean, so why don't we push it a year so that we have this
Yes.
town center 150,000 off, and instead that goes into a library roof or something like that, where a more likelihood without, see, what we're afraid of here is, right, we've sort of got a scheme. If we start pulling more money out of, in addition to spending all of our free cash here, and then taking more money, another 100 out of stabilization, that's just not responsible, I think, for attacking the savings so much within one period, you know, so.
You know, well, our reaction as an entity is,
Sure.
we are less than 1% of the budget under normal scenarios, and nothing's been done for the library,
Yeah.
that we haven't pulled out of our little,
I
you know,
know.
funding and the CPC, so it's like, yeah, everybody's got new toys to play with, and, you know, we're just asking for a roof. We've got the Historical Society on the top floor,
Yeah.
putting tarps over everything to keep them from leaking.
I hear you, and
What are the odds of getting the grant?
I would say that if we went with the slate, it would be pretty good. They won't guarantee anything at this point.
More than 50%?
You know, I honestly don't know. Because you cannot apply for that grant until the money's been allocated.
Do we know of any people any towns that have recently applied or been awarded?
Every year, there's only a certain amount allowed statewide, and every year everyone attacks that for these purposes.
Is there any idea how much the grant would cover, or is that just up in the air until you?
It's really
submit?
Until we know, until we can go to them and say, we have this much money allocated for this project and have committed to spending that money, then they will consider reimbursing. So we're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place here.
You have to pass the project first, basically.
You have to pass it and fund it.
It
Yeah.
can't, and does it
Right.
have to be an
That's what I mean,
unconditional pass? It can't be the passage can't be conditioned
No,
on
it
the
cannot be
grant?
conditional.
It's
No.
okay.
It has to be in place.
Okay.
We've already missed one deadline because we couldn't guarantee any
Mhm.
numbers.
So what if, I mean, the town center, like Dan said, really needs to go on. I mean, the return on investment on that, you know, with it being a federal project, we need to get that engineering finished. I mean, it's a $3 to $5 million return on investment from the project for that. So
Which is 2.5 years in and very far along, and this is sort of the final piece. So it just that's why it's just sort of happened.
So what if again, throwing out ideas, what if the library roof goes on as a debt exclusion this year, and if it doesn't pass, that we commit to putting it on as the big item for the following year?
Tom, while she's
Yeah,
sighing.
while she's contemplating that, think hard, Judy. Isn't it true, and I'm not sure about this, but isn't it true that the town center funding, you could have funded a smaller portion of the engineering, but you chose to fund the entire to completion engineering?
Right, and the main thing is time frame. So if we perform the remainder of the design with this amount of money here, we then get a completed design that we can submit to Mass DOT and then get into the queue for being funding. If we only do a portion of it, and then we do a portion of it the following year, and then maybe you can break it up 10 ways if we wanted to, it would have to get additional money allocated at each town meeting, which just gets us out of the queue, gets us out of the momentum that's been going on for the last 2.5 years on it. So
100% of the engineering funded to get into the queue?
yeah, we're in the queue already. To get into the actual, we're going to give you money queue, yes. We have a listed project, we have, all that sort of stuff. We've had comments on the design, but to get the actual you know, okay, we've got our $12 million. Here's 33.5 million town of Hubbardston because you've got 100%. To that point is we've just, you know how we're going to be. You probably saw some signage and land clearing and stuff going on today. They're going to be starting shortly on the Worcester Road reconstruction on Route 68. That's going to be, you know, happening this spring and summer. Because another project from, I forget what town, I was just told today, from maybe Leominster, maybe Gardner, I'm not exactly sure, wasn't far enough along in their design. Route 68 North just got bumped up into fiscal year 19, which we thought it was going to be 20 or 21. It got bumped up because we did have our design. And so that's another certain amount of million that we're going to be getting next year. So it's a pretty important step to get to.
One more
Yeah,
area
sure.
of concern. I didn't quite understand it, Mr. McLean, when you said some of this I think you said some of this stabilization money is going toward paying down existing debt.
So we're friends now, Thomas Ryan. The free cash, not stabilization is the savings account. It's the free cash that I was talking about.
What amount of money is going down towards paying down old debt? Because where I'm going is, on one hand, we're paying down old debt, and on the other hand, we're suggesting taking on new debt.
It's not paying down old debt, Tom. It's paying for stuff we've already committed to. So we have to pay it either way. So if you don't put that into the operating budget to pay down those old projects like old roofs and old police cars and
But
stuff.
are you accelerating the payment?
No.
Or is it just paying what's due?
Paying
In other words,
what's
are you
due.
paying
Paying
just
what's
your
due.
mortgage, or are you paying it early?
So the consequence of not injecting that money is the operating budget would have to take a hit, which means you either have to cut the budget or do other items.
Am I correct that that money's pretty cheap? It's like 1 or 2% money?
Not borrowing.
I can't tell you exactly what it would be.
It's
It
not
would,
what he said was debt.
it would
Oh,
be
the
based
old
on the
debt.
project.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, Tom, you see the existing 175,000?
Yes, that's what I'm
So,
looking at.
I mean, I don't have a list in front of me, but
I
there's
do. I can
things
show it
like,
to
you know, the dump truck that was authorized last year, that's gonna be
Yeah.
paid over 4 or 5 years. So that's part of the existing debt.
5.
You know, so every year stuff comes off and then every year stuff goes back on.
Yeah, I was only challenging whether we were paying it down early.
No,
That's all.
this is
No,
our-
gotcha. All right,
That's
no,
not the case.
I think we're good.
This
All right.
portion's our existing debt.
And
My
the reason for
concern
trying to
would
get things on debt exclusion is so that that number never goes up. If we do things like buy a dump truck and don't have a debt exclusion, then next year that'll be 225, not 175. So we just gotta dig that hole deeper.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
My concern is the rise in construction prices if we wait too long.
I hear you. We're talking about 1 year. So and I know you don't want momentum to start shifting into
No.
this. I get it. And I just, it's unfortunate where this happens to be the exact same time where some other stuff is being discussed as well. But, I don't know. And I can tell you guys don't want this imitation or asphalt. It's pretty clear across the board. So,
Here's a question, if they went with the lower price, then they would not get the grant at all, right?
well,
Right.
no, they would
That is-
get, but they'd get 133 from CPC, and it would only cost us 11 to do the, you know, the imitation. So,
We'd be doing it again, and we'd be going through this again in 30 years, if you're lucky, because any of you who've had to re-roof your house, you buy 30-year shingles, and you know you're replacing them
Yeah.
in 25 years, if you're lucky. So.
No, I mean, I think Slate's a good idea. I just don't know if we can fund it this year. I think it's a great idea. I mean,
I would say you had nothing to lose by putting it as a debt exclusion, given the sense of the meeting that I hear
I
here.
agree.
And get your vote out.
Okay.
If
It's
you're
the kiss
worried
of
about
death.
if you're worried about the ballot, then get your vote out.
Well, but some of these other things don't require a vote. Does that town center activity require a vote?
yeah. I
well,
mean,
it requires a vote to
town
fund
meeting.
it.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't
Doesn't require a ballot
doesn't
vote.
No, but you know,
require-
we could easily just to say, well, forget it. We're going to put the slate roof in as a town meeting vote, which would pass and most likely, and then we're going to do a debt exclusion for the town center. But like you said, it's the kiss of death.
Yeah.
So we're giving up a $5 million investment from the federal government to do a debt exclusion. I don't think that's a good use of the 150,000. Or they're putting that off. I mean, and I think everybody would agree on that. So, you know, we have two big items we want to fund. I'd say let's get the town center funded, get the project out there on the federal queue to get the money to get it done, and then next year we come back and if the debt exclusion for the roof doesn't work, we come back next year, and that's our big item to fund do the slate roof.
Right, my only point is to not just throw it away, not to just throw your hands up and say,
Yeah.
oh, it's a debt exclusion, oh, it's gonna fail. Not necessarily. I really think that you would find a lot of support in this town, but you've gotta turn it out.
Vin?
All the
Oh,
support
sorry.
we found when the library was shut down.
And that was years ago, a lot of things were shut down back then.
That's
That-
right.
that
No,
was
the
a- that was a
library
huge
was
set-
shut down.
Yep, and the whole parks budget went away.
Fire department was shut
Yeah,
down,
everything was shut down, so we
Yeah.
can't keep going back to that.
Vin?
I just wanna take a different twist to this whole thing. If
Oh wait,
we-
can I just interrupt real quick? You guys had a 5-hour and 55-minute meeting the other night.
We're gonna
All right.
go for 6 hours.
Well, that's why he settled back, and I was like,
No, wait, the real question is, did you watch that?
this is how I watch it. With my finger sliding that little thing along YouTube.
Well played, Vin.
Cause we had to sit through it, that was bad enough,
You-
but for you to do it.
No, I didn't. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah.
But no, no,
I don't know, I think I was taking a little different twist on the approach. And I'm on the CPC, and we struggled with the same kind of arguments. And that's why the slate passed, because when you amortize it over the 150 years, you can't beat the deal. If we take this and we look at it instead of $100,000 from the town out of, into the budget, or out of stabilization, whatever we're taking it out of, why don't we look at it a little bit differently? I don't think there's many people that would say, this $100,000 divided by X number of households in town, at tax-paying households, I don't have that number, divided by the tax rate is going to add a very infinitesimal amount. So rather than, just focusing on the gross 100,000 of all of these projects, I mean, they're all huge numbers, and it's hard to conceptualize all of these. But the fact of the matter is, if it's gonna cost us 93 cents a month for a new roof, I'll pay for 93 cents a month, towards that. And I think that's a better approach to look at, because it puts it into more realistic terms that people understand. 100,000 here, 300,000 there, $1 million here and there. That, that's funny money. Let's talk about what it's really going to cost the taxpayer, and the taxpayer who benefits the most by this, because the taxpayer owns this building, it's ours, is going to put 92 cents. This is makeup money. I mean, obviously that 92 cents is only something I'm making up, but that's going to be something we're investing in for ourselves. So maybe it's a little bit different twist on it, but it might make a little bit more sense to present it in that kind of a way, with the good possibility that it's going to come back. It's just like I said with the planning board bill, we're going to collect that money. I don't know where it goes after we collect it. I know it has to go in the budget to be paid, but it's the same thing when the 100,000 gets reimbursed because of the grant money. Then hey, I got my 92 cents back. That kind of stuff.
And I want all of us to, I know we all sort of have the same common goal, but I want us all to be, galvanized together with the master plan, which over the next 5 years, between the library, between the town center, between South 168, between North 68, between the two churches, that's just a full town center and corridor reconstruction. So we have to make some choices on priorities of what makes most sense of which one to go sort of first with or fourth with, whatever we're at now on that process. And I think we tried to explain, how unfortunate it is that this is exactly coming up at the same time that we have in my opinion, to keep the momentum going to get the money from the state and federal government. So anyway, just another 2 cents.
And I agree with all of the projects. That's, I'm
Yeah.
just trying to make
I
it
know.
a little bit more palatable for everybody so that we don't lose any of it.
Right. Well, okay, anything further on,
Well, I want to talk about Bob's plan to add another firefighter, paramedic, EMT.
Yep.
Can I just, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, so in your budget books, the impact of just over $200,000 on the average tax bill would be approximately $115 a year.
Okay, thank you.
So
For a one-time,
200.
if you did a $200,000 increase from one year to the next, it's approximately $115 a house.
right, so if we debt excluded $200,000, it's $100, basically $100 per household, one time you pay it off.
Ish, yeah.
Per year?
No, one time.
For 1 year.
Be
1
one
year.
time. And that, again, that's what we did with the ambulance. The ambulance was a 1-year debt exclusion. Each house got hit with about $120, $110, one time, done, finished, ambulance is paid for, we're good for another 12 to 15 years.
So that's what.
Linear,
So
would
it costs
$100,000 be half that?
Yeah, yes,
Yes.
roughly, yeah.
So $60.
And again, it's not divided up. We have about 1,500 homes in town, or tax-paying properties, I should say. It's not divided up evenly. It obviously goes with your value. So people are going to get a little higher. Some people are going to get a little lower.
Sure.
That's for
And then
home,
you save the interest on the loan.
about 240,000.
Yeah, right.
So put the dump truck on as a debt exclusion as well?
You can absolutely.
I mean, I think that would be
I think it's in the draft warrant article. Is it?
Uh,
Dump truck?
I had it in there as language for consideration.
Yeah, language
Yeah.
of consideration tonight. We actually have it on there to talk about.
that would be a real good.
It would.
Did
There's-
the ambulance debt exclusion rate go down already? Because honestly, I don't pay.
Oh,
the
it's
taxes.
done. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it's
It was a
done.
one-time thing.
You say
Finished.
obviously what? You don't pay your taxes?
No, like, the company pays that. They just tell me this is how much money you have to give us, and we say, okay.
Yeah, no. The ambulance. The ambulance.
That's what I was wondering. I didn't notice mine going down with that going down, so.
No, it was a one-time, 1 year. Everybody got assessed, whatever the
Our
100 and
assessments
change.
went up, and that's why the rate didn't go
Correct.
down. Okay.
And that, yes.
So basically, it's gonna cost people $10 a month for 1 year.
For the library?
Yeah.
$5. $5.
$5 a month.
For 1 year.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
It's very, the difference between an operational override and a debt exclusion is enormous. So a debt exclusion is, we want to accomplish X, so we're gonna charge ourselves a little bit more. An operational override is, we want more money for the rest of the
Yeah,
time.
we don't want the,
No.
And you can choose a debt exclusion time frame for whatever you want. I think it's up to 5 years.
Sure, so you could
So-
borrow 100 over.
Right, so you can do 100,000 over 5 years. So instead of $50 for the 1 year and it's finished, you would be paying $10 a year for 5 years.
In your tax bill, an additional $10 per year.
More to
That would-
administer.
It's more to administer,
Yeah,
and you're gonna have
goes
to
up.
pay interest on it. I mean, it's such a small amount, might as well just do it in one time.
And you can actually sell it to the town, saying like, see people who already managed to
Yes.
secure
Yep.
133,000, only looking for.
All right. So thanks, Ryan.
As long as it-
Or-
as long as
Oh, wait, and
everything
the
passes. Right, as long as
paramedic.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
This is the paramedic.
Safety passes.
Can I just give a,
Yeah,
so
definitely.
there is a $71,000 surplus. If we take out some, cut it in half so we can be really conservative for what's
Other
left.
things.
That gives us 35,000 surplus. What you have here, you have 16,000, that puts you about 50,000 surplus. So that means that's the free cash you'd have left this
So,
year.
so if we had the 413 plus the 15, 11, 3, 10, 10, 7, and 9, we'll have 16,000 plus half of 71, which is 50-ish, to be able to do things like what you're about to say. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
The other things that should be considered is, if you're gonna put any money into the savings this year, and leaving enough free cash for next year in order to give some budget flexibility.
Okay.
There is money set aside for free cash, probably wouldn't be certified until the fall, so we'd have a little bit of a gap in terms of, it's nice to have free cash just in case. And then also, some of these items could be paid for using, say, your municipal stabilization account to sort of increase that flexibility.
And I mean, we're talking about it now, but we have some additional funds that are coming in that we're going to be able to. I know you were just sort of talking about it, but some additional funds that we negotiated terms to, based on a settlement that we had, that'll be coming in eventually, right?
And putting pressure to get that Chapter 70 money from Quabbin.
Right.
Whether or not that happens, but that's still floating out there.
Yep.
Okay, so we have mitigation, the diesel mitigation, and we have the extra position. Those are the two things I think we should discuss.
Okay.
Can I just ask, C8 there, library, 11,000. At the beginning of the meeting, it was 100,000. If we drive the population toward artificial slate, I think we're moving in the wrong direction.
Oh, it's just up there because we're messing with numbers. I should either make that 100 or 0. I just want to see what it did
That's
to the
right.
numbers.
Please, put under back.
Zero out.
Oh.
Wrong
Just,
choice.
we're trying to figure the numbers out. It's there. We understand.
I
It's
just didn't wanna leave it hanging because it's really not the best choice.
Yes, understood. And I couldn't agree more. But for the purposes of us trying to figure out some of these other considerations, it's easier for it not to be there right now. So, okay, so that changed things a little bit. That actually helped us there, Tom. It added $11,000 to.
So this, and the paramedic firefighter.
Right, so we're gonna assume the AEDs are gonna come out of the Holden Hospital Fund. Mitigation.
Yeah. One sec. Let's get into this. Okay.
I don't know. 1 year, 2 years?
I sort of fall back on the health and safety things. That's like, look, this is diesel fumes, and I do environmental quality work. You know what I mean? I understand the hazards of all this sort of stuff, and so my just personal opinion is you know, if we've been notified of a certain condition.
I would think though that the main fire station would be a bigger concern than the one that just houses the new ambulance.
I would too. How about you?
I don't know, I don't have an opinion on it really.
Okay.
And then one building's is a rental.
Yeah,
So we'd be doing all this work in a rental.
He said you could move it.
Move it.
Yeah.
Portable.
Tom?
Unfortunately, the fire chiefs have told you that this is a health hazard.
Yeah.
I know, that's why I said.
If anyone gets sick, you own them.
Correct.
You
So.
own the problem.
All right, so
We're
buy it.
talking half
So,
of that.
you want to just do the first one?
Just
I
do
mean,
it.
Why don't
Just-
they move the gear to another part of the building and so it doesn't get on the gear?
It's not just the gear.
main fire station?
Those big trucks blow more exhaust fume than the new ambulance by far. You start a new truck in there, you hardly smell it. I mean, I get the same truck as the ambulance has, but if you start one of them big trucks in there, it's
Oh,
gonna
yeah, it's-
be clouded out.
But then he had a point, I mean, that's their headquarters where they also sit all day. Just,
He said they could smell it in the
yeah.
office.
Do they run the ambulance?
Just buy it. What's that?
Do they run the ambulance at the second?
I mean, they don't.
Station?
Well, the ambulance the ambulance, have you ever been down to the other? So, yeah, it's just the one skinny garage.
Yeah.
So I guess what he's saying is when they start it up, it's still a diesel engine, it starts up, fills the bay, they leave, they close the garage door, then it just seeps all into the,
Inner space.
where they all sit, don't they?
Dangerous.
Yeah, all right, just buy it.
Agreed. That's where I started.
All right, and then I'm apt to give Bob the extra position for $18,000. I mean, it's again, from the numbers, you're gonna make back most of the money, so it's not a complete negative. And I think health and safety is important, and like I said, the core function of local government, I think, is to provide public safety. So if he's saying that this is a gap in public safety, it's short money.
Could save a life.
Right.
But to that point also, I have a question in regards to the gear. When he sat here and said that he had, at 10 years, they're no longer acceptable at total at all. And he said, what was he had 8 or 9 of them are at 9 years, and the people that are be sent for training, if it's a 10 years, they won't allow them to
Yeah.
get their training.
Yeah,
So
we're including it in
so-
there.
So Ryan, could you actually
So
get
that's
Bob
also
to
safety
come
hazard
up
for
with a
them.
plan for when the gear has to be replaced, so we have some
Spaced out.
some kind of plan for going forward in the years, how much gear needs to be replaced every year, or every couple of years.
So we have a article on the agenda for a capital improvement plan that I have that as a note to include in that.
Okay.
Because that should be something that is.
You want to jump in here?
Well, just in reference to the AED request, if that is gonna come out of Holden Hospital, I strongly recommend another one be requested for this facility here.
Yeah.
I mean, we have history in Quabbin of a death because we didn't have an AED on the premises over at Quabbin High School, so,
Okay.
you know, I think I'm the only one that's packing here, so it doesn't bother me, but somebody else might need it, I think we should have it.
Especially with the other.
Can we clarify packing, please? Next to the police station?
Oh, I have an internal.
Right,
defibrillator.
okay, I knew that, I just making sure.
Oh, there.
You're not armed.
I'm licensed.
Just hold on to Vin, that's all you need.
Watch me
Then you
do the
need someone
cover
that
on the
knows how to
floor.
use it.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think Bob said he was gonna put in for 5 for Holden Hospital and 1 for.
Well, I
for the
just
senior
wasn't
center.
sure that, but if we have that chance, I mean, I definitely think this facility.
I agree 100%
Yep.
with that.
If you wanted to do the whole mitigation program, you also have your municipal stabilization. That requires a larger vote at town meeting. But that is another source of revenue if you wanted to touch that. I wouldn't recommend stabilization. That's a number that really shouldn't go down.
I agree.
So the municipal needs 2/3 vote to pass?
Yes, for a capital item.
So Ryan, why don't we keep municipal stabilization intact for right now?
Yep.
See what happens with the roof repair, and the debt if we do a debt exclusion, if people wanna do that. And then, again, we know we're gonna put it on next year, and that could be a funding source if we need it, that it's there waiting for it.
So either there or free cash.
With either there or free cash.
Right. Okay, alright, so, I'm in agreement with additional hours, I don't know you guys are, as far as, you know,
Yeah,
that.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
Jeff, yeah?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Alright, so, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, but, if this is the way we went, what we're looking at here, plus adding the $18,000 back in to the operating budget, that 35,000 would then come down, and that would be our amount that we could designate for free cash. And as I said before, we have a settlement that we negotiated from a previous situation that is also gonna be coming in at some point. We don't know exactly when that's coming, do we?
Should be any day, but it wouldn't
Okay.
be certified
So-
till the fall.
And what's that?
It wouldn't be certified till the fall, so we wouldn't be able to touch it. till-
But that 75 plus the 17 would be the amount we could send to free cash. Is that right?
Yes. Plus the surplus, which you still haven't touched.
Plus the surplus, right?
Can you use that for the roof? What's the, well, it's exactly 100, it's almost exactly 100,000.
It is, but
It's
not.
currently unearmarked in the budget. That's what the
Would come
surplus
up
is.
something like 15.
There are other increases coming, you think, though?
I don't think, there will be, we're still negotiating with 2 unions, so I don't really wanna say more than that.
Yeah.
But there needs to be money for that, and then there won't be 71,000 for that, so there's surplus.
Well, the 71's gonna be subtracted by 18, right, for Bob's position?
Yeah, or out of this.
No,
So-
the
Yeah,
35 minus
one
18
or
is
the other.
71. Some of that's still going to be part of the negotiation. So that's the.
So the real free cash, I'm not trying to confuse everyone, but the real free cash number is 105,000 right now, minus the 18. So we have about
Right.
80,000 of money that's unassigned.
Sure. Okay. All right. Well, that's enough of that.
Do we wanna put the dump truck on this year as a debt exclusion also?
Well, let's go through the warrant.
Okay.
Can we turn some light on?
Oh yeah.
It was just 'cause they couldn't see,
Yeah, no.
so.
So now could we,
Are you gonna be showing that on the thing for the street?
Yes.
Do we have the warrant in front of us?
Here.
It's a
Yeah.
extra packet.
right here.
Can we turn the lights on?
Yeah.
Over.
Yep.
It's kinda
All the way on the other side of the.
Yeah.
Keep going to the door.
Keep going.
Do you want me to drive this thing?
You.
I don't, but I can get them.
Alright, so the first 2 articles are housekeeping. The I don't have an extra.
Do you have it that you can just put up on the screen so people can
It
see
is
it?
up there.
Oh,
What do
okay.
you need?
Do you want one now?
No, that's good.
Okay.
Perfect.
Why don't you? Can you zoom that in a little bit?
Yeah, can you just make it a little bit bigger?
Sure.
One
Just
150.
slide the slider down the bottom.
Alright.
Ooh.
I thought you
Thanks,
meant-
Tom.
Oh,
Gate number 3 is so we can do construction in the town with Mass DOT. Again, another housekeeping. I'm not trying to skip these, but these are mandatory.
No, do it this way. If anyone has any questions, feel free to chime in, but I'd rather
Great.
just sort of get through it.
Grant money from the schools is Article 4. Article 5 is traditionally in there for the Holden Hospital account. 6, there are no changes to the revolving accounts, and we're still within the limits.
Okay.
Well within the limits. 7 is the budget, which is, we're still talking about it, but those will be numbers that are filled in.
Mm-hmm.
Number 8, this is the Senior Citizen Works tax abatement program we discussed. 15,000 for that. Number 9 is just pending review from accounting, and this is just moving money from one to the other to balance accounts.
Housekeeping?
Number 10 is the exact same thing as the warrant article we showed in terms of what's in the operating budget for capital expenses. So you'll see the same things there, the mitigation, the AEDs, the firefighter gear, the town center project, and the library project. The small library projects. Article 11, I have 2 versions of here. One is 200,000 by available funds, which is any of our accounts or tax levy, or 11A is a debt exclusion for the dump truck. I'm gonna keep going unless you stop me.
Yeah, I'm gonna. So this is what we were talking about. I don't. I'll do it. Debt exclusion for
What do you guys think?
dump truck.
Debt exclusion,
Yeah?
try it?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, 11A then.
Number 12, this is the Library Board of Trustees articles requesting 250,000 for the roof.
Right. So, where are we? Where do you think we're at with that right now? Wish they were still here. Like, in your mind, is that number not 250 anymore?
That's correct, it would be 100.
100. So it would actually change this on here. Okay,
Yeah.
I just.
No, it wouldn't be 100, it'd be 120, right?
Yeah,
It's
you
one-
133.
No, I'm saying total. 250 was not the right number. It was a placeholder. It was 233.
Oh, I missed that part, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Okay.
100.
Okay.
You might need a vote for that, but I'll put it in as 100
A vote from the library or a vote from the town?
from the library.
We did it,
You did it already?
we did it at the last meeting. No, library's gone. I'll produce the meeting minutes and
Please,
show you that.
just want to make sure we're.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I'd be glad to do it.
Hey, number 13 in your meeting packet, if we can just skip to the agenda item real fast, the net metering agreement with Seaboard Solar is finally executed after a very extensive, in my opinion, due diligence from legal back and forth, making sure the town was protected and making sure that that we got language in there that would protect us in case rates go down. Council did continue to say that nothing is for certain, for sure, that the savings rate is guaranteed, but I do think, given our energy costs and our budget constraints, that this is a win for the town in terms of reducing energy costs. So I talked to town council. There's nothing in the bylaws that allows me to enter into contract for 20 years, so it's cleaner to have a town meeting vote, and our contract is contingent on this passing at town meeting. That's what 13 is. 14 is there in case it's needed,
Unions.
as a placeholder for the unions to pass those contracts. 15 is the 3,000 for the job classification update and the study. 16 is for the combi oven, cafeteria steamer for the schools. 17 is a placeholder in case there's any money to be transferred into stabilization or to put into the town's savings account, to put it easier.
Okay.
Now we're getting into the CPA articles from the CPC. Article 18 puts revenues into the CPA accounts. Those numbers are still to be determined, but we'll have those before we need them. 19 is what the CPC gave us in terms of funding the exterior repair, siding, sills, venting, and trim for the Evangelical Congregational Church, which is known as the Dayspring Church. So what they're doing here, just to explain it, is they're paying $50,000 out of their undesignated reserve and then borrowing $50,000 over 3 years.
Okay.
I thought it was 5 years.
I'm sorry, 5 years.
Okay.
5 years. That's important, thank you. The next one is a very similar difference, but it's for the First Parish Unitarian Church and their roof to include all costs and incidentals. So they're taking $35 from one reserve account and $3,300 from another, and then borrowing the rest over 5 years to hit $76,620. I did check. This is the appropriate way to do it. To say you're going to pay down and then borrow. These articles are okay.
Okay.
The next one is the library.
Shouldn't that say 133?
133.
It absolutely should. I'll fix that.
Although you can leave it at 230.
No.
So this would say 133, and this is 33 down, so to speak, from the reserve, and 100 borrowed over 5 years.
You guys are active.
They have no choice.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. Don't you already have the 100,000?
It's a different
That's a
hundred.
town piece.
Article
That was
12.
the town piece.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
the project's
alright.
233. The CPC is designated 133. I know this doesn't say that, but I'll go fix it.
Okay, alright, okay.
Ben.
I don't know if this is set in stone, but would it be more appropriate to put this article before the previous article about the library? It's a very remote possibility, and if this article doesn't pay, I'm sorry, if this article doesn't pass, then an article on debt exclusion isn't gonna work.
Yep,
either.
makes sense.
So you wanna do one before, this one before the other one?
Yes.
We could. I kind of
I
see
would try to
both.
keep the CPC all together.
Well, that's fine, I don't care how you do it, I'm just
Bring the
saying. that
library one
Right.
down.
The
Do
yeah,
the
you can bring the
library
library
one
one
before
down.
the other two buildings.
But I think
Town
if this one
owns the
doesn't
library.
pass, then the other one is.
So then I have to ask them. So are you saying that the library voted to do this as a debt exclusion or for 100,000? So there's a difference.
We had 100,000 and we didn't choose the wording because we thought you were gonna supply it. It says something like borrow or extract
Transfer
from
from
existing
account, yeah.
funds or.
So the library is authorizing the use of debt exclusion language for that 100,000.
I don't have that vote, I just have 100,000.
Okay. We'll make sure that's voted
Should-
done.
should
Yes,
we
we're
put-
having a meeting Thursday.
Like, should we put the
And-
library one ahead of these two? Because the town owns the
Yeah, I
library.
think that's a good idea.
Why don't we move the library one
To
the
Article
front
19.
and put the Dayspring and the other church after that?
And then after that, the additional $100,000 debt exclusion.
For under general articles.
Number 12.
Okay, that's easy.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, you're right, because it's the
I
town
mean,
building, you might
that's
as well
the
put it
only
first.
12 and
building
21
the
we
town
move up.
owns out of the
Yep.
three
Is
of
that
those.
basically what we're doing? 12 and 21 are moving up,
I don't wanna
ahead of
interrupt.
what's now 19 and 20?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did.
What's that? Go ahead.
Just a technical question. How does the CPC borrow? Does it need a debt exclusion or does it borrow on its own, standing on its own two feet?
So good. I had to look this up too. Good question. The CPC or the town meeting vote authorizes the treasurer to borrow using CPC funds to reimburse,
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay.
which is a really cool mechanism. In
Yeah,
my
it is.
opinion. For us public administration nerds.
You are becoming one.
Yes.
He's there.
So continue. Thanks, Sven. Appreciate that.
Okay.
General articles. So the Board of Assessors has 3 articles here. One of them would give tax abatements for any National Guard reservists called to active duty in foreign countries. The second one would lower the exemption age and monetary limits for persons age 70 to age 65. So drop it 5 years. And the third one increases the income threshold of 20,000 for circuit breaker state incomes tax credits. So I asked, question was asked to the Board of Assessors specifically from the Finance Committee what financial impact this would have, or they estimated it would have, and they said that there wouldn't be any impact. And I can bring them in if we need to discuss that more.
Tom?
If there's no impact, is that the same thing as saying we're not helping anybody?
But we potentially could if someone ever needed it, I guess.
I don't want to speak.
Raise the number.
I don't want to speak for the assessors, but it allows for, in case it was necessary, so there may be future impact. But as they see it now, there wouldn't be much, or any. So. 25 is the street or road citizen petition. So the wording comes straight from the citizen petition.
Yep.
26 is voting to raise and appropriate 15,000. So that'll have to change
20.
to the 20 that we had tonight. 27, the Open Space Committee is asking to delete a member from their board. Delete one at-large member so they can help get a quorum for their meetings.
A living member?
Is smiting one of their members.
So they're deleting 2 members.
Yeah, one conservation committee and one at large.
So 9 to 2. Thanks, Joyce.
So they were 9? It was a
They were
9-member
9.
board?
Wow. And that comes straight from the Open Space Committee. Alright, there's many bylaws.
I gotta go. Sorry.
So there are many bylaws. The first one from the planning board is respect to the scenic road bylaws. We haven't had a chance to talk about this. Is that adding to? Is it a new bylaw?
This is a new bylaw we would like to put into the general bylaws, not the zoning.
Okay.
It comes out of
Yeah,
Article
sorry.
22.
Is this included in yours?
Negative.
So it goes into general, not zoning.
Goes with general, not zoning. Right.
I don't know how the board wants to proceed, if you want to read or if you're just being informed at this point.
I think you sent it out to us before. We went over this. At least I did.
This was new,
Was it new? I
I'd be
thought I
glad
read
to
this.
explain
Joyce,
it.
you went
It's
through
a-
these,
it's a
Go
didn't
for
you?
it.
At our last
new
meeting, you
bylaw.
went over some of the
Not
changes?
not the planning board.
Okay.
I believe in, you want me to go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
I believe it was 79 or 78, the state promulgated a law called scenic roads, and the town voted, I believe in 79, to include something like 23 or 25 roads on the scenic road list. And what that means is, under state law, you cannot alter the scenic road, the designated scenic road. You can't punch a hole in the stone walls, cut down a shade tree in the public right-of-way, or any other alteration without having a petition to the planning board, or tree warden, and/or tree warden, and having a public hearing and getting permission to do such. Now, not every road has that situation. So if you needed a driveway permit, and it was okay to put a house up with a driveway, that's no problem if it's not a scenic road, and it's not a problem if it is a scenic road. You just have to go through the proper procedures to have the public hearing and let the neighbors and the abutters have a say in that. The only part that we did not include was a bylaw for any type of enforcement or for monitoring the scenic roads. So therefore, we've had this past year 5 that I know of. 3 on Hillville Road, 1 down at the senior housing complex, and I think 1 on Williamsville Road.
Old Princeton.
And Old Princeton Road, yeah, where they were designated scenic roads, but they did not have public hearings, they did not come to get proper permission. Unfortunately, we have no mechanism to enforce it or to police it. So what this scenic roads bylaw does is give the building inspector, DPW, and planning board, and I think conservation as well, the authority to monitor, and the planning board under law has the responsibility to regulate it, and it also has an enforcement component of it. So somebody can go in there and say you can't do it, and there's a punitive section for a fine if it's done without permission. That basically, in a nutshell, what it does. Basically gives the town some teeth to enforce the violations on scenic roads that we don't have now.
The DPW grant was before too.
Yeah. Oh, and it also prescribes how a scenic road can be included on the list or taken off, I suppose, if you wanted to do that. You know, and the unfortunate part about it is with not having the bylaw now, the folks on the scenic roads who petitioned to have the road included on the scenic road have no recourse when somebody doesn't follow the rules. This is something that would help us.
So when you said on Hillville, what, like there was a violation or something that happened, or?
There were 3 driveways put in.
So they would get a driveway permit from the DPW?
They would get a driveway permit from the DPW, and at which time it would be noted that they're on a scenic road. They would then have to come apply to the planning board and or the tree warden, and we'd go through a public hearing process where the abutters would have the opportunity to say, you know,
That they didn't want it, or?
well, if they didn't want it, or they want it restored to its original condition, and
But the way the process works now is they go to the DPW and get a driveway permit, and then he would say it's a scenic road, correct?
if
The way it is
if
now.
he catches it, you know, and
Well, there's a list. He should
there's a
have a
list,
list.
but, you know, unfortunately, it's one of those situations where it's, because there's no bylaw to refer to, it's a list that we, you know, we have, but unless you.
It's on the town website, right?
Yeah, it is now, yeah, but most of these violations just happen because nobody was aware of it. You know, and
So you think
when
all these
Travis-
regulations need
Well,
to?
when Travis came in last year, he called me a couple of times, but by then it was already punched through. And at that point, he could regulate it with the driveway, but we couldn't regulate it on a scenic road situation, so. All right, close the barn door.
Just a minor correction in the first paragraph. You mentioned that the MGL was accepted by the town, but it's not a requirement that we accept that, so it technically wasn't accepted by the town. It's
Okay.
just, it is a law.
It is the law.
It's not a local option.
Okay, any more on that one?
A lot of regulation just for a driveway.
Yes, it is.
If they had been paying attention to that list, the DPW, and were able to regulate it kind of through the driveway permit, would there have been issues?
Yes, then there would be no public input. See, the scenic roads law calls for public input from planning board, tree warden, conservation,
Yeah.
and then obviously giving the opportunity to neighbors who included that road on the list to have their voice as well. And so if you wanted a driveway and you said, well, I need a tractor trailer in there and I have to have a 25-foot opening, you don't wanna leave it 25 foot if a 12-foot's gonna be better off after you finish your deliveries, so you can have the public hearing and the landowner would have to put that stone wall back into that right side, gas it up. It could be mitigation as well, but right now we have nothing to enforce it. So the elderly center on, Old Princeton Cutoff just went in and did it. They didn't even put the driveway permit on. And they installed a new septic system, put a new driveway in there, it's there, so.
So there's no fine for not getting a driveway permit or breaking the wall?
Not right now, I don't think so. And it does seem like it could be a minor technicality unless you're a resident of a scenic road and you want your road maintained in a certain way, then at least it gives you the opportunity to have an opinion of it at a public hearing.
29?
Article 29, this is from the planning board as well. Zoning bylaw for use of large-scale solar photovoltaic installations.
Right, this is a revision of our existing bylaw. And we've had a couple of meetings with residents who have had opinions on it, and we've reviewed it ourselves, and we've tried to modify it so that it becomes more sensitive to visual impacts, to setbacks, and to property owners and residents that may or may not want this kind of facility. So it specified as, instead of a a sighting by right, it's a sighting by special permit, and we modified the screening procedures so that it's not visible.
We
Go ahead,
clarified,
whatever
yeah,
else
we
I'm missing.
clarified the screening procedures, so it's much more clear and specific on what they can do. And what we're trying to do is, the people that last fall, we had the special town meeting, someone had initiative petition, over 100 people had signed this. And there's a lot of interest in the people that we changed the bylaw, or at least clarify the bylaw, that people who are gonna live next to these things aren't necessarily gonna have to see it. So that was the impetus of why we started to change this bylaw. Okay, and as we got into it, we basically just clarifying a lot of details in it, so, and making sure that the person doing this understands that they're supposed to make this thing as invisible as possible, so we don't have a problem like we have up on Williamson Road with the berm there, with down trees, or dead trees, so. I mean, unfortunately, that went in, that was the first one, was that the first one?
One of them.
Yeah, so, it's just like everything else that's involved, and this is the next evolution of the sewer systems.
We also redefined what we wanna make sure it becomes invisible, and thinking that 20,000 square feet of solar panels is just as offensive as 40,000, so we lowered the limit to 20. So anything with 20,000 also has to be screened.
Anything half acre.
Half acre.
On the part where it's cited by right and replaced with special permit, it wasn't by special permit before, huh?
It's both.
Well, yeah, it's just a wording change, and it was cited by right in every district, but you needed a special permit in order to operate it. So what we're saying now is we're clarifying that, you know, you have to have the special permit in every district as well.
And when we signed on to be a green community, does it say in there that solar has to be by right? Did we look into that?
I didn't know we signed on as a green
Are
community.
we?
We're not signed
We're
on
not
as a
signed
green
on yet?
We just had the kickoff meeting, that's it.
Okay.
But
No,
it
but-
makes it, if you don't have it by right, you're ineligible for a green community.
If you wanna listen to the debate, there's about an hour and a half of debate at our last meeting between
About
Tom
that.
and I.
It wasn't
Yeah.
a debate, it was a discussion.
Yeah, it becomes an interesting discussion when you pair it against the green community situation. So I don't know, if we eventually decide to adopt a green community, we'd have to go back and revisit this and change this as well. But the green community has what we don't want to see anymore, because if you have a green community, they can do anything anywhere by right. They could put a 50,000 square foot building in any zone so that they could produce solar panels. You know, that's one of the gives and takes. Would they do it? I don't know. But what we're trying to do here is listen to what the people have said and make things a little bit easier to be invisible, I guess, you know, make it harder to be seen. And, you know, when we get to that green communities discussion, if we do accept it as a community, we'd have to go back and change that. But it's a give and take there, so we might wanna look at it real closely.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of, that's not a discussion for now, but there's a lot of upside to a green community, there's a lot of downside. I mean, people, it's gonna cost more money to build a house in town, it's gonna, you know, between the insulation requirements and all the requirements you need, so.
But a lot of
there's
that comes back in energy savings.
That's
It
hard
is a
to-
much stricter energy code, but
It is, but it's gonna be
comes
hard
back.
to tell someone to build a house like that when they have to, but anyway, that's a different night, forget that, not for tonight.
I mean, you know, every bylaw can be revisited if we need it, so. But right now, we don't have a green community, so.
All right, Article 30.
All right, 30 and 31, Vin, if you don't mind jumping in here, these are pilot.
Come up, because I can't see that, so.
These are pilot agreements. Are you gonna need these this year? 978 solar.
Where are we, 31?
30 and 31.
So these are placeholders in case.
Hillsville and
Right, we do this every year. These are the pilot agreements that need to be voted on so that the select board can negotiate the pilots, and as we've done every year, we'll probably offer a friendly amendment, unless you want to put it in here, that the negotiations don't start until the planning board has issued the certificate to generate and the facilities in complete compliance. Because the problem is, if they negotiate the pilot program without you knowing that they haven't completed anything, we don't have any leverage on them. They don't have to complete it. They've got the pilot, and the pilot is instrumental in their selling their investment, more so than their compliance with all the rules and regulations. So it's just a fence around a fence, so that we make sure that, you know, we don't get, and that's what we do every year.
You wanna just change that, Ryan?
What are we changing, Madam Secretary?
So that the negotiations do not commence until after the certificate that generates, issued by the planning board.
Yeah, we can take the language from previous years, because every year it's been accepted as a friendly amendment, and
This comes right from assessing, so this is good.
that's correct, and it's nothing wrong with this, it's just an addition to it, so that, we had,
So it's a negotiation, it doesn't start until certificate to generate.
right,
Is issued by the planning board.
and I think it was Seaboard that went around everybody and started to negotiate with, so we, you know,
These are for the two new farms?
2 farms, right?
On
This should be-
Windmill and Old Westminster.
So the remaining.
No, they should not be there.
It says 141 Old Westminster Road.
Well, maybe we wanna delete that, because the fact is, they've requested and this just came in last Wednesday night, they've requested a continuance of that hearing until July, and I told them if they don't have their ducks in order by July, I'm gonna ask them to withdraw it without prejudice, because
And the other one says 147 Williamsville Road.
Williamsville Road's okay, it's all Westminster, I would not put
Is this,
that on
is
there.
this the one next to Lisa? Old
Yeah.
Westminster?
Correct.
So you want me to-
31 is next, is Old Williamsville,
So
Old
do-
Westminster.
Do you want me to subtract 31 then?
I would, I don't see where we can, that would come up either at a fall or maybe next year. These hearings are taking a lot of time. The Article 30, we're almost a year into this, so I think we'd be premature for 31.
So they are gonna go forward with that one on Old Westminster then?
We don't know.
You don't know.
You know, they've come in with 2 continuance requests so far, and then we had the snow continuance request, and
These were the same guys who came in with the subdivision plan, right? That,
no.
this is,
That subdivision plan was an interesting one. The Old Westminster Road had the possibility of a solar farm being placed on that. The initiative petition would have put any application for that solar farm in limbo until that initiative petition was satisfied, which would have been, 3 or 4 months down the road from that time that they applied for the solar farm. What their engineer did, not the solar farm, not the solar farm, but the owner of the land, came in with a subdivision plan for a 2-lot subdivision on that road. And what that did was, it froze the zoning protection for that land. It had nothing to do with the solar farm and the people who were developing that. It had everything to do with the rights of a landowner who can then freeze his zoning protection under law by submitting a subdivision. So what it meant was, if we changed the zoning in October with the initiative petition, they would have been exempt from it anyway, because they were smarter than the average bear, and they figured the state law out, which I had never even known about either. So they solved their zoning problem by doing that with that subdivision. And then, after the article failed, they withdrew without prejudice that subdivision application. It was kind of a end around that no one expected, so that happened.
But it's the same company that's doing both, right?
Borrego is the same company, correct? Well, the same company is Borrego.
978 Solar.
The final decision on this pilot would be who you want to authorize to negotiate and execute, so that you can keep it as yourselves. You can empower me to do that, but I would need to know how the board wanted it written. We could do an and/or, meaning either of us.
why don't we, I still think the final approval should be in the Board of Selectmen's hands. I mean, you would act in our stead, obviously, through negotiations.
The final approval should be.
Final approval of the Board of Selectmen.
I think that's the law, isn't it? I always did think anyway.
It just needs to be written the way we want it. All right, any more questions on that?
Ben, you're gonna need to pull up a chair at this town meeting. At the microphone.
Next
Well,
is.
I can hear it now. Don't you ever stop talking?
Yeah, keep it short.
Yeah,
right.
short and sweet.
So our town clerk, Joyce Green, will be coming up next. Article 32 is the amending the entire general bylaws from the bylaw review committee.
Well, we sort of went through this last time, but there's one, kind of major point that I wanted to bring out to you, and the committee met last week, and, there's an issue with the sex offender bylaw. I don't know if I really touched on this last time when I was here with you. The sex offender bylaw, we had a couple minor changes, and we had some questions that we had asked town council, and they came back with their opinion that, because of a recent ruling at the Supreme Judicial Court level, that was the City of Lynn versus 3 sex offenders, the court has ruled that these types of bylaws are unenforceable and should all be repealed. So, town council's recommendation was not to make any changes to the bylaw. And they didn't really say that we should vote to repeal it, and I don't know if they are advising all of their towns to repeal. This is the first I had heard of it. You know, I haven't heard anything at town clerk conferences or anything about it. But the committee felt that we should still put the changes in that they have recommended, some minor wording changes and clarifications. And if the Attorney General doesn't approve it or disapproves the entire article, chapter, whatever, then so be it. But the committee's opinion was that we shouldn't just not submit, I mean, that was one option, is to not submit any changes to that chapter, so it doesn't come under scrutiny by the Attorney General's office, and risk losing the entire bylaw because they didn't want that to happen.
But if it's unenforceable, then I'm sure there's gonna be more court
Well,
cases, right?
Because it's still there on the books, you know, maybe sex offenders don't realize it's unenforceable, maybe they do. I don't know, is it a false sense of security to have it there for people? It's really kind of just too convoluted for the committee to make a decision on, and they felt that the selectmen should make the decision as to whether to include any changes in that or.
Why don't just leave it alone and let it mature? I mean, if it was just a recent court ruling, I'm sure there's gonna be more
2015.
2015?
But the rationale of town council was to say nothing, was to not include these amendments.
I got
They
you,
didn't
Dan.
really say that.
What did he, what did he say?
They just said that they did not feel that, they felt that all these types of bylaws should be repealed.
Is that what town council advised, or is that's
Yes.
what the?
Go ahead,
Yes.
Danielle.
I actually wrote that bylaw, and I wrote it in response to a sex offender who was a level 3
Right.
that was showing up at the school during play practice, and we asked the police to remove him, and we couldn't remove him. So it was written in such a way, it wasn't restricting where they lived,
Right.
and it wasn't restricting their usage, it was only saying that they had to let the body that was like using that property know they were there and ask permission to be there. So they had to disclose that they were a level 3 sex offender hanging out in a school gym, or at the playground, or at the senior center, wherever that was. So at that time, I don't know what the case was that went before the state Supreme Court, that was ruled as allowable because you weren't restricting their right to work or live.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just that they had to notify folks involved that that's what they were.
And the court case was surrounding a residency bylaw, like where they could live and where they couldn't live. But here's what town council said: enforcement of the bylaw by the town or an attempt to amend the bylaw could give rise to a constitutional challenge with a potential for an award of attorney's fees under civil rights laws. So, and then further down, in my opinion, the same rationale from the Lynn decision applies to the town's child safety zone bylaw. Based upon the foregoing, I would expect the Attorney General's municipal law unit would disapprove an amendment of a bylaw that places restrictions on sex offenders. It doesn't say that they would make us take the bylaw away, and it's kind of up in the air, so the committee didn't really know what to do, and so they said, let the
Punt it to
selectmen
us,
decide.
Well, what are the nature of the changes that you're proposing to make to it?
Nothing major, just minor
But
clarifications.
what are they? Let me show you.
Is it in here, the change?
Okay, so it talks about where the sex offenders cannot go, and it's calls out recreational facilities, libraries, school, daycare centers, private youth centers, video arcades, bathing beach, swimming pool, and the committee wanted to add the word public in front of swimming pool and other things such as that. And, then we had some questions, like I said, that weren't answered.
Right, yeah.
And then to list, there's supposed to be a map of these safety zones and, on file at the police department and the town clerk's office. And we wanted to add that should also be on the website.
So you have two changes to the law. I know you have questions, but in terms of the
Yes.
changes,
Yep.
you have two.
I mean, they're not huge changes, so.
No, but I think, his point is that by changing anything, we're all
Any opinion?
Why don't we just leave it then? I agree, we just leave it.
Just leave it alone.
Leave it.
Rather than risk having nothing.
Right.
Yes.
You opening up the Pandora's box. Yeah.
Sleeping dogs and that sort of thing.
So just leave it. You agree?
Okay, I do. I mean, it was funny, another town resident who's also works for the police department, no, the jail. He read into a person that was kind of grooming a kid at the club, and they couldn't remove him from the school because he was illegally there. The school was open to the public, he could come in. And he had just received that in prison for assaulting a kid.
I make a recommendation. To the article, perhaps we could include a copy of the general bylaws index, so that when people read chapter 30, section 10, they can go to the index and say, oh, chapter 30 is whatever title that is, as opposed to not understanding what the title of chapter 30 may be.
Yeah, so this is,
Yeah, well, I could include just the title
Yeah, just, or you could do it
in the bylaw
or just
changes.
either way.
Yeah,
But, I mean, that would
I
require
thought of doing that.
64 different changes, or if you just include the index from the general bylaws, people go, oh, chapter 26 is whatever it is, and they go to the index and read it. Whatever you wanna do, I mean, it's confusing not knowing what the
Right, yeah.
titles of the numbers are.
Yeah, I realized that halfway through. I mean, I know what they are because we've been working on it
Sure.
for months. But you're right, that's a good point.
we'll have many copies of this, just not putting them in the warrant for obvious reasons.
It is gonna be an expensive warrant. Alright, what do we got, 33?
33, this would be
Marijuana.
marijuana. So, adding a section to the zoning bylaw with respect to commercial marijuana establishments. This is from the planning board.
So this would be a new article, and we thought we'd get away with a method of just adding it into the commercial zone, but after Ryan and Tom Brecker went to the Attorney General's meeting, we came back with a little bit more complicated process, but I think Tom did a good job on this. This is very inclusive, and it covers the 4 major areas of marijuana businesses that we we need to look at. And it also makes any marijuana establishment allowable under a special permit, with the exception of tier 1. But it has a lot of interesting points to it where we have to have a host agreement, community host agreement, and then the select board has to negotiate a tax rate with whomever is the final applicants for these licenses. And it's almost a cooperative effort between the town and the state. Whoever is going to apply for one of these licenses has to get our permission, I guess, if you will, to go to the state for the license, and it has to come back to us. Tom, anything you want to add to that? Go ahead.
One of the things, we were getting ready to do this bylaw, one of the big things, what Ryan and I learned is they changed the regulation. They had the draft regulations, then they went out to public comment, and they came back, and there was drastic changes to it. I mean, some whole new sections were put in there. They had this tier system of outdoor recreation, growing of marijuana. So what we tried to do is balance people's rights to be able to run a small business out of their property, and the rights of the rest of the town not to have to put up with a huge manufacturing facility next to their house. So we started with this tier 1 in residential agricultural, which is virtually everywhere in town, up to 5,000 square feet. People will be able to grow marijuana, get a license to grow marijuana to sell commercially. They can't sell it out of their house. They can only sell it to a distributor, and they actually have to hire a transportation company that also is licensed by the state. So there's all these licensing requirements. It's kind of crazy, and they still have to abide by all the security requirements and all the reporting requirements like that. So all we're saying is, if you have under 5,000 square feet, which is 50 by 100, and you want to be able to grow marijuana to sell to a commercial entity, you're able to do that by right without a special permit. We felt that a special permit process is quite expensive. There's a couple $1,000 in, anyways, at least a couple $1,000 to get through it. We thought that would be too high of a burden for a small operation to let people do that if they wanted to do it. Anything above that, the next 2 levels up to 30,000 square feet, will be in a could be done in a residential area, but it would have to be by special permit. These are businesses that could generate several $1 million. Again, they can't sell to the public. All other marijuana establishments, whether it's growing it inside, outside, retail, laboratories, transportation, all can only be done in the commercial district. We felt those businesses are gonna be a large-scale commercial business, and they should be in our commercial district. And that's kind of where we probably went with it.
As did the police.
And I did talk to the police chief, ran this by, I talked to him about this today, and he felt this was more than reasonable. He didn't think policing of these small areas would that big a burden. That being said, the state has laid out a specific procedures on how to go about licensing some of these things, and we decided to put those procedures in the bylaw so we don't have to answer a million phone calls, and it's very clear who's gonna do what and when they're gonna do it. And we figure this method will help the town learn how to deal with these properties and help us through the procedure. I mean, this is all laid out by Copeland and Page. Joel Bard is the one that laid out all these procedures. So I thought it was a pretty good meeting, Ryan, that you went to. It was very well done.
It was very informative.
So I'm interested, did they talk at all about the effect the federal government may have? Because the Justice Department has got a lot of other problems going on right now in Washington, D.C., but, they've sworn that they're not gonna uphold the state's rights to marijuana. Was that at all discussed at any of these meetings? Are we just gonna spin our wheels and the federal government's gonna come back and say it's all illegal?
Well, they may be able to, they can do that. I had actually put in this general zoning bylaw that all these things could be done as long as it's approved by federal law, but I was told by all the members of the committee, and I think attorney said you can't put that in it, so. The problem is if we don't pass this bylaw, they can put a marijuana facility anywhere they want as long as it's 500 feet from the school or playground. So they wanted to build a 50,000 square foot facility 30 feet from your property line. There's nothing the town could do about it at all. It would be by their right to do it. So, we felt it was good to be able to, at least have a little bit of controls on this. The other thing that we put in there that we didn't originally were thinking about is we limited the number of facilities that could go in each category. Again, this is so new and we really don't know what's gonna happen, so we limited the amount. We actually are allowed only to allow one facility of any type in the town. That's all what we're required to do. But we put in there a little bit more leniencies. We said, I think 4 of them in the tier 2 and 3 outdoor cultivation, and then in the commercial district we said 2, and see what the people of the town feel about it. But we also felt that we really should have some sort of limit to start with to see how it goes. This is all new territory. Every city and town is exactly the same boat as we are. So this is probably a little bit more liberal than a lot of towns. You know, Barry just turned it down. So.
By the voters.
By the voters.
All three.
You gonna stop growing peaches?
Yes.
Is this gonna be like pick your own? I know Harrison was at strawberries and blueberries pick your own.
If you saw the regulations, 77 pages of regulations, and I've gone through them all, and it is just, it's unbelievable. It's be the most regulated thing in the state.
I wanna call it Cheech and Chong bylaw, but it won't.
So Ryan, I noticed there's 2 Article 33s. Is it all just one article, or is it 2 separate?
So, get to it.
And while you're looking at that, I'm actually changing it all to Article 22, so everything would be 22.1. Because we still have the Article 21, which was the moratorium bylaw. I don't think we should delete that. I think that should stay there so that it has some type of historical perspective, and Article 22 would be part of the zoning bylaw. So it's under Article 33, we have Section 21.1. We change everything to 22.1, 22.3.
You were gonna check that, right?
Yeah, so I wanted to see if those two can be combined and what the effect of continuing to have the moratorium would be. So
Well, the moratorium has a sunset clause in it, so it's gonna go away. But I think if we leave it in the bylaw, at least we have some reference to the fact that we implemented that before we implemented the controlled bylaw.
So the short answer is I just wanna, we're gonna clarify it so it'll be correct.
But we are changing the definitions article too, it's on there. Number 2, and then.
Just don't know if it needs to be 2 or
one article.
one article.
Yeah, I think we wrote it up as one article.
Right, we did, but we were gonna
Yeah.
check to see.
So,
I'm just not sure it can be done that way. If it can be, great, because it's just
yeah,
one less
it's
vote.
easier.
All right, 34.
34, again, this is a zoning bylaw for wireless communication facilities, very short.
This was just, it's motivated by the same situation we have with the solar facilities, in that a bond is a very difficult thing to enforce, and it, sorry about that. And it expires within 2 years. So if a decommissioning bond is not gonna be worthwhile in 20 years, no sense in having a bond, but if we get the cash, we have the cash to put aside for any decommissioning of the facility or taking down of the tower. So that's all we're doing, is changing the definition of the bond to cash surety.
35.
Okay, 35, you wanna take this one, Liz? This is the revolving funds. Is this,
Well, this is something that is, I think, gonna be mandated by the state, that you have, the revolving funds that we vote every year. They want, the DOR wants towns to have bylaws that authorize those, and then town meeting would just have to vote on the amount, the maximum amount that the fund could have in it each year at town meeting, but you don't have to authorize the funds themselves, just the amount of, the maximum amount allowed.
So we're gonna have two.
And this was directly from the DOR proposed draft bylaw.
So you're saying the state's gonna mandate it, basically?
Well, they've basically said that that's what they would like to have it happen.
Mm-hmm.
They want everyone to have it in their bylaws, that these revolving funds exist.
We'll have two
And these
charts
are-
this year.
And these are more than what we have now.
No, these are all existing.
They are all
Yep,
existing?
all
Okay.
existing.
Okay.
Two charts this year, maybe no charts next year.
Right,
Didn't have
right.
any.
But it's gonna be a very confusing town meeting.
So, one thing.
Yes.
I'm beginning to think some people are gonna leave and you lose your core.
So one thing Joyce and I were discussing is because of the number of bylaws and the length of the bylaws would be to add some of the bylaw questions to the special town meeting to divvy it up, because that's really only 2 votes during that time. It should be done in seconds, really. It might make sense to add some of these too. We'd just be looking for your.
Cause this is gonna be late in the night by this point, and you're gonna lose a lot of people, and,
Hopefully it'll be cranky.
yeah, and it's
The
a
older
lot,
people will have
it's a
left.
lot to digest. So, I think that's a good idea.
I would suggest picking some of the. They're all very important and could turn controversial, but there's a couple that have a lot of attention. Maybe saving those for annual town meeting, but moving some of the others up.
Yeah, I mean, stuff like the Article 35, I mean, these are easy enough to comprehend, but probably not at 10 o'clock at night, so.
And the general bylaws only require 50% of the vote. Zoning goes for 2/3, so it might be a consideration for the special.
To do the zoning and the special?
They'll do the
Zoning.
in the general, but the general in the annual, but the general bylaws in the special.
Yeah, so I don't know, come up, make 34 with the change to the cash surety, the revolving fund stuff. I mean, maybe removal of snow and ice from sidewalks, these might be good ones to move up to the special. I don't know, you guys can,
That
Take a
sidewalk
few.
one, I think would be controversial.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think there'll be
You know,
some-
you could take the one major one that the bylaw committee did, move that maybe to the special.
To the special?
And maybe the revolving fund one, no.
Go for it, whatever.
Well, we have a meeting Wednesday, we'll present the new draft. So 36.
Oh, yeah, I did submit this one, this is a common bylaw that a lot of town clerks had passed, just so that if something is passed without a chapter assignment at town meeting, or if it's assigned incorrectly, or if it needs to be moved somewhere, the town clerk has the authorization to just renumber, not to make any substantive changes, but just renumber or resection or however it may fall. So that could go into special.
And 37 is from the Department of Public Works. This is removal of snow and ice from sidewalks, making it mandatory and finable if it's not completed within the time frame.
The only place with sidewalks is right downtown, isn't it?
So far.
Well, after they redo it,
That
then it's gonna go up to the rec
doesn't need
field,
2/3. Doesn't need 2/3 if it's a general.
you know, and they kinda
I'm gonna go roll.
disrepair now, but they'll be on my sidewalks.
We have here a 2/3 vote for 36 and 37, but if they're general bylaws, they only need 50%.
No, I just told
There's a copy and paste error, I'll fix that. Thank you. And that's it, quick town meeting.
Might wanna do it on a Saturday and have breakfast, lunch and
Any,
dinner.
any law against
The
having
thing
2
is, some of the
nights?
sidewalks are on town property, so they're gonna be out
We've had
there
2 nights
anyways.
before.
Mhm.
Clearing.
We've had 2 nights
But
before.
the
Yeah,
Travis is concerned
I'm serious, you know,
once they
Yeah.
go all
because
Go ahead.
some of these
Like
could be
how to drive
important,
from
but they'll be
here.
shortchanged because of not only people
gonna
being
have to
tired,
listen to
assuming
it.
they last that long, but they may not even be here
And he's
I
gonna
wonder if we should consider that,
What's that?
2 nights.
drive
Oof.
up, I don't know.
No.
Wanna move
Take it up with the
zoning
moderator.
bylaws to the
Hmm?
front?
Take it up with the moderator.
I mean, I think if you move as many of those simple housekeeping ones to the special town meeting and leave some of the meaty
Town
ones
property, yeah.
So
later on.
the plan is for me to give this one good swing again tomorrow, send it to town council to get ahead of that, and then give the draft to everyone on Wednesday, or the final draft. And then it's to be finalized on the 23rd, the next meeting. So we'll have one more walkthrough.
Go ahead, Ben.
We're gonna need a vote from the select board to send the zoning articles back to the planning board so we can hold public hearings.
Motion, anyone?
I'll make a motion to send the articles back to the planning board for a public hearing.
The zoning articles.
Zoning
right.
articles.
Yeah, the
Zoning
zoning
articles, I'll second that,
Now,
yeah.
Just as a point of clarification, I guess, we've never, we've had in the past public hearings for general bylaws. Come to find out, we didn't have to do that. We've established some precedent. If you want, we can hold public hearings for those as well, but it's not required. However,
Say just do the zoning articles. You don't have another 6-hour meeting.
we love those.
All right, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right.
Just a question, is the marijuana bylaw, is it zoning? Okay.
Well, that's an interesting question, because Joel Bard said at the meeting that we should have it zoned as a zoning bylaw and a general bylaw. Exactly the same article, you know? At least you were there when,
I get paid twice.
so, if the town wants to do that, I don't know.
What's the advantage? I can't quite get the advantage. but-
He said a belt and suspenders, so. I'm just thinking we can very confusing.
So is, Ryan, is there anything else that's pressing we need to do tonight since it's 9:20 already, or on our? 'Cause we're only at,
Do the appointments
we're
have to
only
be
at
done?
number 4 out of 15.
So I would say 5 through 10 we could get done in a reasonable amount of time.
Okay.
We're done with this.
Yes.
Well, 11 we can skip anyway, because Dan usually does that.
Yeah.
Minutes, we can put that off.
So I'll jump right into to my report. I do think we can keep this to 10-15 minutes to respect people's time. I met with the communities of the QEMP, and we have a job description that will become available for the economic coordinator. It's a very exciting position. Looking to get that funded or get that started and hired by July. So we'll continue to update on that.
You just follow that.
Got a $20,000 community improvement best practices grant for a capital improvement plan. Looking to assign that and start working on that. The scope would be to start this summer, and that would be a 5-year plan built by the Collins Center at UMass. And the central idea would be to capture everything we need for capital for the next 5 years, but also to implement a program moving forward that would allow the capital improvement planning committee to update it annually, so we wouldn't have to pay for this again. So I'll have more information on that. In your packets, we have a Veteran Service Officers a regional agreement that we are looking to get signed. This is an agreement between Ashburnham and Westminster to share the services of our new Veteran Service Officer, Jared Sharp. So Mr. Sharp has been in Veteran Services for a while, has experience with social work, working with local service officers, and filing many federal benefit claims. He has a master's degree from Montana State University in Education and served 2 tours in Iraq. He'll begin serving as soon as all the boards appoint him, if that's their pleasure, and he'll be doing a minimum of 4 hours in our community weekly. So this agreement includes $2,000 stipend for the remainder of this year and $8,000 stipend per year. So it would be a complete share with Westminster and Ashburnham, be hosted by Westminster, and any Hubbardston resident or veteran can access him at any of the offices, but 4 hours will be here for convenience. So that is the IMA, if the board agrees, and this is budgeted in next year's budget, just in case this approval went through.
Do you need approval for the contract, or you need approval for the appoint the person?
Both.
Okay. So we'll take, you wanna make a motion?
Make a motion for the veteran service officers, his contract and his appointment.
Well, hold on, I
Can
think
they both
we-
be put
no,
together like that?
Because it's a waiver of,
Yeah, yeah.
it's a waiver of
Okay, go-
notification, so it's be two separate.
Two separate motions.
Make a motion for the new veteran services officer appointment.
I'll second that.
Alright, it's, so, are you doing the contract or the appointment of the
Appointment,
person?
you said appointment, so it'd be the.
Alright, so it's a waiver of notification.
A waiver of notification for the veteran service officers.
Okay, you have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
And then the second half is the
We need a motion to approve the, regional contract.
motion to approve the regional contract for the veteran services officer.
Second motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. The, our police department administrative assistant has been selected.
Oh, good.
Her name is Nancy Perrin, no relation to Chief Perrin. I met with her, the chief and Lori on Friday. Her skills, she lives in the community. Her skills in customer service will serve her excellently. Her father was a police chief, so she's really engaged, really excited to begin, and that's gonna begin next week. Looking for, there's a wage authorization in your packet, looking to waive notification on that as well.
Anybody wanna do that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll waive the notification fee for
Nancy Perrin.
Nancy Perrin.
Second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So that's kinda weird. No relation, but same name.
I didn't believe him at first, but we've edited it.
He liked the name though, he was fond of
Did.
it.
She's gonna be a great addition, and we'll bring her in so the community can meet her. She's agreed to come to one of the meetings. Other employee vacancies, we still have vacancies in town clerk's office, the treasurer collector's office, and public works. Public works was decided today, so we're very pleased to announce that Eric Willoughby, who is our mechanic, will be moving to the laborer position, and we'll be re-advertising the mechanic position. This was agreeable to Eric, the union, and our director, so that position is being filled internally. He's really skilled at all of the labor and truck driver skills. We think that it was the best case scenario for him and for us to fill with such experience. There's no vote needed, but we're just showing you that he will remain in the mechanic position and paid at the mechanic level until such time as a mechanic is hired, and then he'll move to the new position. I'm asking you also to appoint me as the assistant town treasurer. So this allows us to continue to distribute warranted checks when the treasurer is not out. Only the treasurer and the assistant treasurer can sign and authorize payment. So we do like Sandy, but she occasionally was going to go on vacation. And this is just a housekeeping item. Until we hire someone who can be bonded and serve as the assistant town treasurer, I'm asking you to authorize me to be the assistant
So
town
it'll be
treasurer
a temporary appointment in that
until
sense.
an assistant town clerk is
Okay.
selected.
I'll make the motion to appoint the town administrator as the assistant town treasurer until such time as a qualified candidate can be selected.
Can I suggest you put temporary in your wording?
Okay, as opposed to qualified, yeah, fine. Let me amend that. I move to make a temporary appointment of our town administrator as the assistant town treasurer until such time as a qualified candidate can be selected.
Any second on that?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yes.
No? Oh.
Yes.
Yes.
You have to be bonded?
We are looking into that bonding.
All in favor?
Yes.
Green Hubbardson Day, that the machinery continues. They are scheduled to go for Saturday, 21st, 2018. We've been helping them with permitting and insurance needs. Everything is checked out, so they are advertising as we speak. The rain date will be April 22nd. You can follow them on Facebook at Green Hubbardson. It's going to be a great day. Really looking forward to it. And as I like to do, wanted to recognize one of our employees. This meeting, we're going to recognize Joyce Green, our town clerk. She's been running crazy with the bylaw review committee, assisting in the town election process, which is in full swing right now, guiding me and others in the creation of this warrant and making sure that it's correct, and has been serving as a
Too bad she left.
experienced member of the finance and budget team. But much of this is part of her job, but much of it isn't, and without her, we would be lost, in my
She
opinion.
does yeoman's work, so.
Moving down, we talked about the community compact grant, did the appointments, did both the wage authorizations, and I've already notified you of the contract with Seaboard Solar. The only thing remaining in the agenda would be the open meeting law complaint, which is in your packet. The response letter was written from our town council to the Inspector General's office, dated April 2nd.
Find the letter.
You didn't find anything, right?
Okay.
We do have a letter from the Attorney General. It's to the complainant. It says you filed your complaint. Just gonna review the complaint. So we don't have anything substantial from the Inspector General yet. We're waiting that, but we are continuing to move forward with this process.
Alright. No committee updates, right?
QMP was updated.
Town center,
Town Center bylaw was updated.
bylaw review we just went through.
This isn't a response to this?
That's our council's response to
Oh, okay, I got you.
to the
Alright.
Inspector General.
Gotcha.
Attorney General, excuse me.
Right.
So the only thing left is minutes. 26.
Are we all here? Were we all
Yeah.
here?
Yep. I'll make
Okay.
a motion to approve the minutes of March 26th.
Second.
Alright, all those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Alright.
Just a reminder, we are having a meeting on Wednesday night.
Yeah, what time is it starting?
Regular-
6:30, okay. Yeah.
So that will be to approve this year's budget and send it to the Finance Committee for their review. And I'll have that draft warrant again. It's not on the agenda to discuss it, but you'll get to see the version that went to the town council.
Any further public or press question and answers before we close the meeting?
What time you gonna adjourn?
Like now? Alright, nothing? Any motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.